Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beast fanfic. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Goku was the Apocalypse Dragon Slayer and was saved by the she-devil Mirajane Strauss. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dimensional Severance. The ground beneath Goku's feet cracked as he pushed off, launching himself skyward with a burst of golden energy. His Super Saiyan aura blazed against the darkening sky, casting Hars shadows across the shattered landscape. Opposite him, hovering with casual arrogance, the entity calling itself Kronos merely smiled. Is that truly all the legendary Son Goku can muster? Kronos' voice echoed strangely, as though speaking from multiple places simultaneously. Its form, vaguely humanoid but composed of swirling cosmic energy, rippled with amusement. The destroyer of Frieza, the warrior who challenged gods. Goku wiped blood from his lip, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. 30 minutes of combat had yielded nothing but frustration and an increasing sense that something was fundamentally wrong with his opponent. "You don't fight like anyone I've faced before," Goku called out, circling cautiously. "Your energy, it doesn't feel right." "Perceptive," Kronos acknowledged, extending a hand that elongated impossibly. "I exist between realities, Saiyan. Your physical laws are suggestions to me." The air around them thickened suddenly, gravity intensifying tenfold. Goku's muscles strained against the pressure, but he remained standing, his determination unwavering. "Then I'll just have to hit you hard enough that you feel it in every reality." Goku's battle cry split the air as he summoned a fresh surge of ki, pushing beyond his Super Saiyan limits. The golden light surrounding him intensified, crackling with bioelectrical energy as his hair grew longer, more rigid. The transformation to Super Saiyan 2 completed in seconds, power radiating from him in waves that bent the fabric of reality around his form. Kronos appeared genuinely intrigued. "Fascinating. Your species evolved to channel dimensional energy through biological means." Rather than respond with words, Goku responded with action, vanishing from sight only to reappear directly behind the entity. Fist already in motion. The impact created a thunderclap that shook the mountains in the distance, driving Kronos downward through solid bedrock. But Goku's momentary advantage disappeared as quickly as it had formed. The entity's form simply flowed around the impact, reconstituting as though the attack had never landed. "Physical assault will not harm me," Kronos stated, floating upward through solid stone as though it were mist. "I exist in multiple states simultaneously." Goku narrowed his eyes, analyzing his opponent more carefully. Despite his reputation for straightforward thinking, decades of combat experience had honed his tactical instincts. If conventional attacks wouldn't work, he needed to find the unconventional solution. "Multiple states, huh?" A small smile played across Goku's face. "Then I'll just have to hit all of them at once." Drawing his hands to his side, Goku began gathering energy for his signature technique. Blue light pooled between his palms, swirling with concentrated power. "Me." The energy intensified, compressing rather than expanding. "Me," Kronos observed with scientific detachment, making no move to dodge or counter. Interesting approach, but ultimately, The beam that erupted from Goku's hands wasn't the typical Kamehameha. Instead of a focused attack, it split into dozens of energy tendrils that curved through the air, weaving complex patterns before converging on Kronos from every conceivable angle. For the first time, surprise registered on the entity's face as the energy streams connected, creating a perfect sphere of destructive force with Kronos at its center. The explosion that followed momentarily turned night to day, illuminating clouds miles above. When the light faded, Goku remained in his firing stance, breathing heavily. Kronos hovered in the same position, but its form had become less distinct, edges bleeding into the surrounding air. "Impressive," it acknowledged, voice distorting. "You've disrupted my cohesion across several dimensional planes simultaneously. So I can hurt you," Goku replied, straightening. "That's all I needed to know." Kronos' form wavered, fragments of its energy dispersing before being forcibly pulled back together. "A temporary inconvenience. You've merely taught me to adjust my manifestation parameters." The air around them began to shimmer, reality itself seeming to bend inward as Kronos raised both arms. "But you've also shown me that you're dangerous, Saiyan." Too dangerous to be permitted continued existence in this dimensional cluster. I've heard that before, Goku replied, settling into a defensive stance. Usually right before I win. Not this time. The distortion intensified, Space F. Folding inward like paper crumpling in an invisible hand. Goku felt the pull immediately, not just on his body, but on his very ki, as though his energy was being drawn into the collapsing reality. What are you? Removing you from the equation, Chronos answered calmly. A localized dimensional excision. Goku gathered his energy to teleport away, but the instant transmission technique faltered. There was nowhere to lock onto. Space itself was being twisted into a singularity. Pain lanced through him as the fundamental forces holding his atoms together began to stretch and compress in ways they were never meant to. You won't get rid of me that easily, Goku shouted, pushing more power into his Super Saiyan 2 form. Golden energy erupted around him, fighting against the dimensional collapse. For a moment, it seemed to work. The distortion stabilized, held at bay by sheer force of will and Saiyan determination. Chronos' expression shifted from confidence to concern. Impossible. No biological entity should be able to resist dimensional reconfiguration. Goku managed a pained smile. First time, for everything. But even Saiyan physiology had limits. The strain of Rezi, sting the spatial distortion while maintaining his transformed state was rapidly depleting his reserves. Darkness crept into the edges of his vision as capillaries began rupturing beneath his skin. Chronos sensed the weakness. Your resistance is remarkable but futile. Accept your banishment with dignity, warrior. With a final surge of effort, the entity compressed the dimensional pocket further. Reality collapsed inward with the sound of shattering glass, and Goku felt himself being pulled through a void that existed between existences. His last conscious thought was a fleeting hope that wherever he was being sent, they had food. Then darkness. Mirajane Strauss hummed softly to herself as she navigated the forest path, her white hair catching the late afternoon sunlight filtering through the leaves. What had begun as a simple herb-gathering mission for Master Makarov had evolved into a pleasant day away from the constant chaos of the fairy tale guild hall. Time, sage, moonwort, she recited, checking the contents of her basket. The healing potion ingredients were nearly complete, lacking only the rarest component, night orchid, which bloomed only in the hour before sunset. The forest deepened around her as she ventured into areas rarely visited by Magnolia's residents. Ancient trees with trunks wider than houses created a cathedral-like atmosphere, their canopy so thick that the forest floor existed in perpetual twilight, perfect for the elusive flowers she sought. Mirajane paused, sensing something unusual. The typical forest sounds, birds, insects, small animals, had gone silent. Even the constant background hum of Earthland's ambient magical energy seemed subdued. "Hello," she called, her gentle voice carrying through the unnatural stillness. "Is someone Tere?" Only silence answered. Mirajane's pleasant expression didn't waver, but her posture shifted subtly. Those who knew her only as the sweet-natured barmaid often forgot she was once feared as the she-devil. An S-class mage whose Satan soul takeover magic made her one of fairy tale's most formidable members. A distant boom, like thunder but sharper, broke the silence. Mirajane turned toward the sound, watching as birds erupted from the trees nearly a mile away. A moment later, the magical pressure hit her, a wave of foreign energy unlike anything she'd ever encountered. It wasn't dark magic of a guild-like phantom lord, nor the clean, clinical feel of council spells. This was chaotic, wild, primordial, and it was in pain. Her decision made instantly, Mirajane abandoned her basket and broke into a run toward the disturbance. The rational part of her mind suggested returning to the guild for backup, but something deeper, intuition honed through years of magic use, told her there wasn't time. The journey to the source took nearly 15 minutes, even at her pace. What she found in a newly formed clearing stopped her cold. Trees had been flattened in a perfect circle nearly 50 yards across. Their ancient trunks snapped like twigs. At the center, a crater smoldered, earth fused to glass by incredible heat. The magical pressure she'd felt earlier was centered there, pulsing erratically like a wounded heartbeat. Approaching cautiously, Mirajane reached the crater's edge and peered down. A man lay unconscious at the center, his orange GI torn and burned, black hair matted with blood. His muscular frame was covered in wounds that should have been fatal, yet somehow, he still breathed. More concerning than his injuries was what was happening to the air around him. Reality itself seemed unstable, shimmering like heat waves over desert sand. Occasionally, a small tear would open beside him, showing glimpses of alien landscapes before sealing shut. "How are you still alive?" Mirajane whispered, sliding down the crater's side. As she approached, her magic-attuned senses detected something extraordinary. The man's body was instinctively drawing in magical energy from the environment, not the controlled absorption of a trained mage, but the desperate feeding of a dying organism seeking sustenance. Most concerning was the specific energy being absorbed. Ethernano. The particles of magical power that permeated Earthland came in countless variations that determined a mage's affinity. What flowed into this stranger was ancient and primal, Drago. End-Slayer particles that normally existed only in trace amounts, except near dragon lairs or artifacts. The concentration was building to dangerous levels. If it continued, the magical buildup could prove catastrophic. Mirajane made her decision quickly. Kneeling beside him, she activated a fraction of her Satan soul power, just enough to protect herself from the wild magic, and placed her hands on his chest. "I don't know who you are," she said softly, "but I can't let you die here." Her takeover magic wasn't designed for healing, but it excelled at energy manipulation. Carefully, she began guiding the chaotic absorption, providing structure to the process. The air stabilized gradually as she worked, the dimensional tiers closing one by one. Minutes stretched into an hour as Mirajane meticulously balanced the flow of energy. Sweat beaded on her forehead from the effort, but her concentration never wavered. Finally, the man's energy stabilized enough for transport. "You're not making this easy," she told the unconscious stranger, managing a small smile despite her exhaustion. "But Fairy Tail specializes in difficult cases." With surprising strength belied by her slender frame, Mirajane lifted the man onto her shoulder. The journey back to Magnolia would be long, and night was falling, but the alternative was leaving him to die alone in the forest. That wasn't the Fairy Tail way. Consciousness returned to Goku in fragments, sensations arriving disconnected from context. Pain came first, a deep, cellular ache unlike anything he'd experienced since his first transformation to Super Saiyan. Next came awareness of soft material beneath him, then voices speaking a language that sounded familiar yet strange, as though heard underwater. He forced his eyes open, immediately regretting it as light sent daggers through his skull. A groan escaped his lips, drawing the attention of nearby figures who were merely colorful blurs to his adjusting vision. "He's waking up," a female voice said. Gentle but alert. "About time," responded another, gruffer female voice. "It's been 3 days. 3 days. Goku tried to sit up, but his muscles refused to cooperate. The E.F. fort sent a wave of nausea through him that had nothing to do with his typical hunger after recovery. "Take it easy," the gentler voice advised, a cool hand pressing against his forehead. "Your body has been through an extraordinary ordeal." Goku's vision finally cleared enough to see the speaker, a beautiful young woman with long white hair and kind blue eyes. Despite her gentle demeanor, something about her reminded him of fighters he'd known, a certain readiness in her posture. "Where?" His voice emerged as a rasp, his throat painfully dry. The white-haired woman helped him sip water from a cup before answering. "You're in Fairy Tail's infirmary, in the city of Magnolia. I found you in the East Forest 3 days ago after some kind of magical accident." Magical accident. The memories rushed back, the battle with Kronos. The dimensional distortion, being torn from his reality. Goku closed his eyes, processing the implications. He'd been transported to another world before when fighting Beerus. But this felt different. The energy here was nothing like his home dimension. "I'm Mirajane Strauss," the white-haired woman continued. "This is Fairy Tail's Guild Hall. You're safe here." "Goku," he managed. "Son Goku." A short, elderly man stepped forward, moving with the confident grace of a lifelong martial artist. Despite his diminutive stature, Goku immediately recognized the power he carried. Not just physical strength, but the weight of responsibility and wisdom. "I am Makarov Dreyar, Guild Master of Fairy Tail," he introduced himself. "Miss Strauss tells me Shifu. NDU at the center of an unusual magical disturbance. Care to explain how you came to be in such a condition? Goku attempted to gather his thoughts, but they scattered like leaves in a breeze. Song. Anything was wrong with his ki. It felt submerged, inaccessible, replaced by an unfamiliar energy flowing through his meridians. Fighting. He began simply. Entity called Chronos. It opened a tear between worlds. Send me here. The effort of speaking exhausted him, but he forced himself to continue. Need to get back. My friends. My family. The third person in the room stepped closer, a striking woman with scarlet hair and armor that reminded him vaguely of the brief time he'd spent in the afterlife. Her posture radiated suspicion and caution. Interdimensional travel is extremely rare and dangerous magic, she stated. Arms crossed. Claiming to be from another world entirely is a serious matter. Mirajane chided gently. I've been monitoring his condition. His magical signature is unlike anything in our records. And you felt the dimensional disturbances yourself. The scarlet-haired woman, Mirajane, remained unmoved. Which could indicate many things. Dark Guild experimentation, ancient sealed magic, council weapons testing, or, Makarov interjected thoughtfully, exactly what he claims. A visitor from another world. The old man approached Goku's bedside, studying him with keen eyes that missed nothing. Your physical constitution is remarkable. Miss Strauss tells me your injuries should have been fatal several times over. And the magical adaptation occurring within you is unprecedented. Magical adaptation, Goku repeated, confused. Mirajane exchanged glances with Makarov before explaining. When I found you, your body was instinctively absorbing magical energy from the environment, specifically, traces of Dragon Slayer magic particles. Master Makarov believes your body is adapting to our world by developing a magical container. Dragon Slayer. The words triggered something in Goku, a flash of memory that wasn't his own. Ancient scales black as night. Wings that blotted out the sun. A roar that could end worlds. He gasped, back arching as the vision overwhelmed him. Mirajane was at his side instantly, her hand on his chest emitting a soft glow that eased the episode. It's happened several times while you were unconscious, she explained. We think the Dragon Slayer magic is carrying echoes of its origin. Makarov stroked his mustache thoughtfully. The magic you've absorbed is ancient and rare, apocalypse dragon particles. Most didn't even believe they existed outside of legend. Is that significant? Mirajane asked, her suspicion tempered slightly by curiosity. Potentially world-altering, Makarov replied gravely. If the legends are accurate. Goku tried to process this information, but exhaustion was overtaking him again. His eyes grew heavy despite his efforts to stay alert. The last thing he heard before unconsciousness reclaimed him was Mirajane's voice. Rest now. When you wake, we'll help you understand what's happening. Darkness returned, but not emptiness. In the void of unconsciousness, a presence waited, ancient, powerful, and awakening after millennia of dormancy. Goku's recovery accelerated rapidly after that first awakening. By the fifth day, he was able to sit up and consume the mountains of food his body demanded. Much to the astonishment of the guild members tasked with kitchen duty. By the seventh day, he was walking around the infirmary, testing limbs that felt simultaneously stronger and weaker than before. His ki remained frustratingly elusive, replaced by the unfamiliar magical energy that continued to develop within him. Without his usual abilities, Goku felt vulnerable in a way he hadn't since childhood. It's perfectly normal to feel disoriented, Mirajane assured him as she checked his vital signs on the morning of the 8th day. She had been his primary caretaker throughout his recovery, her gentle demeanor masking keen observation skills. Mages who undergo significant magical changes often experience similar adjustments. It's not that, Goku replied, flexing his hand experimentally. My whole life, I've trained to understand and control my ki, my life energy. Now it's changed, like learning to walk again with someone else's legs. Mirajane nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps what you need is practical experience rather than more rest. Would you like to see more of the guild today? The prospect of finally leaving the infirmary brightened Goku's mood instantly. That sounds great. I'm starving anyway. You're always starving, she laughed, the sound musical and genuine. I've never seen anyone eat like you do, and we have some impressive appetites in Fairy Tail. Goku grinned, rubbing the back of his head in a habitual gesture. My friends back home used to say the same thing. Saiyan metabolism. Saiyan, Mirajane inquired as she helped him to his feet. My race, Goku explained simply. We're warriors, built for fighting. Something in his tone made Mirajane study him more carefully. You miss them, your friends and family. It wasn't a question, but Goku nodded anyway. Yeah, my sons, Gohan and Goten. My friends, even Vegeta, though he'd probably laugh at me getting stuck in another dimension. We'll find a way to get you home, Mirajane promised. The sincerity in her voice was so absolute that Goku found himself believing her despite the enormity of the challenge. She led him from the infirmary into the main guild hall, keeping a supportive hand near his elbow though he no longer needed physical assistance. The hall was enormous, constructed of warm wood and stone, with a high vaulted ceiling and dozens of tables scattered throughout. A long bar dominated one wall, while a request board covered another. The atmosphere was boisterous and welcoming, members drinking, laughing, arguing, and occasionally brawling with the comfortable familiarity of family. It reminded Goku painfully of gatherings at Kame House or Bulma's compound. Conversations quieted briefly as he entered, curious eyes turning to assess the stranger who'd been the subject of guild gossip for over a week. Mirajane's presence beside him seemed to legitimize his appearance, and soon the normal volume resumed, though many continued to watch him with undisguised interest. Everyone, this is Son Goku, Mirajane announced to those nearby. He'll be staying with us while he recovers. Please make him feel welcome. A blue-haired girl who couldn't have been older than 12 approached first, a white cat walking upright beside her. Hello, Mr. Goku. I'm Wendy Marvell, and this is Carla. Mirajane told me you're developing Dragon Slayer magic like me. Goku blinked in surprise at the talking cat, though after Korin and Puor, perhaps he shouldn't have been shocked, before registering the girl's words. You're a Dragon Slayer, but you're so young. Wendy smiled shyly. I was raised by the Sky Dragon Grandini. She taught me Sky Dragon Slayer magic before she disappeared. Don't let her size fool you, added a pink-haired young man who had bounded over. Wendy's tougher than she looks. I'm Natsu Dragneel, Fire Dragon Slayer. Igneel raised me. A muscular man with multiple piercings and long black hair grunted from nearby. Gajiel Red Fox, Iron Dragon Slayer. Goku looked between the three, fascinated by their diverse appearances despite sharing a magic type. So Dragon Slayers are taught by actual dragons. Usually, Mirajane confirmed, though some learn through lacrima implantation or other methods. Dragon Slayers possess magic that was originally used to combat dragons. Combat dragons, Goku repeated, triggering another flash of foreign memory, a massive black dragon laying waste to an entire continent, mountains crumbling beneath its roar. He staggered, catching himself on a nearby table. Mirajane steadied him immediately. Another vision. Goku nodded, disturbed by the apocalyptic imagery. It felt real, like something that actually happened. Memory fragments from the magic you absorbed, theorized a small, blue-haired girl who had approached during his episode. I'm Levi Magarden. I've been researching your condition for Master Makarov. Find anything helpful? Goku asked hopefully. Levi's expression turned apologetic. Not much about interdimensional travel, unfortunately. But I have found references to the Apocalypse Dragon in ancient texts. They're fragmentary at best, but they describe a dragon with the power to end or renew the world. End or renew? Goku questioned. Destruction for the purpose of rebirth, Levi elaborated. Unlike other dragons who specialized in elements like fire or iron, the Apocalypse Dragon represented the cycle of endings leading to new beginnings. Another fragment of not quite memory surfaced in Goku's mind, gentler this time. A vast dragon with scales that reflected starlight, watching calmly as a devastated landscape slowly sprouted new life from the ashes. That actually makes sense, he said slowly. It reminds me of. His words were cut short as the guild doors burst open, admitting a voluptuous woman with flowing brown hair who carried a barrel of what smelled like alcohol. She surveyed the room with a practiced eye before spotting Goku. So this is our dimensional traveler, she declared, approaching with confident strides. Not bad looking, either. I'm Kana Alberona. She offered her hand, which Goku shook with a smile. Son Goku, nice to meet you. Kana studied him intently, then glanced at Mirajane. You didn't mention he had such a powerful aura, Mira. Aura, Goku repeated, intrigued. Instead of answering directly, Kana produced a deck of cards from a small bag at her waist. With practiced motions, she shuffled and laid out 3 cards on the nearest table. Card magic, Mirajane explained. Kana is one of our best divination mages. The cards began to glow softly as Kana passed her hand over them. Let's see what we've got here. Interesting. The first card showed a dragon silhouetted against a full moon. The second depicted a warrior standing at a crossroads. The third showed a tower being struck by lightning. Transformation, choice, and sudden change, Kana interpreted. You're at a pivotal moment. Goku, the magic you've absorbed isn't just changing your body, it's offering you a path. Whether you take it is your choice, but either way, nothing will be the same. Goku studied the cards thoughtfully. Throughout his life, power had come to him through dedicated training and occasional leaps during moments of extreme need. This gradual magical transformation was unlike anything he'd experienced. Can your cards tell if I'll get home? He asked. Kana's expression softened slightly. Divination doesn't work that way. I can see patterns and possibilities, not absolutes. But I can tell you this, your presence here isn't random. There's purpose to it. Before Goku could inquire further, a commotion near the bar drew everyone's attention. Natsu and a dark-haired young man were engaged in what appeared to be an escalating argument. Here we go again, Mirajane sighed, though her tone held more fondness than exasperation. What's happening? Goku asked, watching as the dark-haired man suddenly stripped down to his underwear without apparent awareness of doing so. That's Grey Fullbuster, one of our ice mages, Mirajane explained. He and Natsu have been rivals since childhood. Their bickering usually turns into Fire Dragon's iron fist, Natsu shouted, his hand engulfed in flames as he swung at Grey. Ice make. Shield. Grey countered, a crystalline barrier materializing between them. That, Mirajane finished with a resigned smile as the two mages began a full-fledged magical battle, quickly drawing others into the fray. Goku watched in fascination as elemental magic filled the guild hall. Despite the destruction, there was no real malice behind the fighting. It reminded him of the friendly sparring sessions at Master Roshi's. Or the martial arts tournaments of his youth. A table came flying toward them, and without thinking, Goku moved. His body responded with familiar speed but unfamiliar power. Instead of deflecting the table with a ki-enhanced strike, he found his fist coated in dark energy that demolished the wooden furniture on contact. The sensation was both exhilarating and disconcerting, power without the control he'd spent a lifetime mastering. The room fell silent as everyone turned to stare at the display. That wasn't ordinary destruction magic, Urza observed, appearing suddenly beside him. Her wire suspicion had morphed into analytical assessment. That was Dragon Slayer magic. Goku looked at his hand, where traces of the dark energy still clung like shadows given substance. It doesn't fade like the other Dragon Slayer magic I've seen. It's heavier, more fundamental. Apocalypse Dragon Slayer magic, Makarov stated, approaching through the now quiet guild. Just as I suspected. Why? Our body didn't just absorb traces of the magic, it's fully incorporating it, adapting it to your unique physiology. Is that dangerous? Goku asked, remembering the catastrophic visions. Makarov's expression was grave. All power can be dangerous, my boy. But in my experience, it's not the magic itself that determines its nature, but the heart of the one who wields it. The guild master gestured for Goku to follow him to a quieter corner, away from curious ears. Mirajane accompanied them, her usual smile replaced by attentive concern. The Apocalypse Dragon was neither good nor evil in the old stories. Makarov explained once they were seated. It was a force of necessary destruction, clearing away the old to make room for new growth. Its power was feared because few could comprehend its purpose beyond the initial devastation. Goku nodded slowly, thinking of the delicate balance between creation and destruction that Beerus and Whis had explained to him. Where I come from, we have beings called destroyers. They eliminate planets, sometimes entire star systems, to maintain cosmic balance. Without destruction, creation stagnates. An apt parallel, Makarov acknowledged. The question now is what this means for you. Dragon Slayer magic bonds permanently with its user, changing them fundamentally over time. You're already undergoing that transformation. Will it help me get home? Goku asked, cutting to his primary concern. Makarov and Mirajane exchanged glances that did little to inspire confidence. We don't know, Mirajane admitted gently. Interdimensional trave. L is rare even in theoretical magical research. But if anything could pierce the barriers between worlds, Apocalypse Dragon magic might be capable. It specializes in breaking down fundamental structures. Then I need to learn to control it, Goku decided, his characteristic determination surfacing. I've mastered difficult techniques before. This will just be one more challenge. Makarov smiled at his optimism. I admire your spirit, Goku. However, there's no one who can teach you this particular magic. The Apocalypse Dragon vanished centuries ago, if it ever truly existed outside of legend. I don't need a teacher. Goku replied with simple confidence. Just space to train and figure things out. A familiar glint appeared in Makarov's eye, the look of a martial arts master recognizing a kindred spirit. In that case, I have a proposition for you. While you're with us, why not join Fairy Tail? As a guild member, you'll have access to our training facilities, mission opportunities to test your developing abilities, and the support of fellow mages. The offer surprised Goku. Join your guild, but I'm not from this world. All the more reason, Makarov countered. Fairy Tail has always been a home for those who need one, regardless of where they come from. And frankly, a mage of your potential wandering fury unaffiliated would draw unwanted attention from the Magic Council. It would also give you legal status while you're here, Mirajane added practically. Without guild affiliation, unregistered magic use is technically illegal. Goku considered the offer. He had no idea how long it might take to find a way home, and having a base of operations made strategic sense. More importantly, he'd felt a genuine warmth from most of the guild members he'd met, the same sense of family he'd found among his friends back home. All right, he agreed finally. I'll join Fairy Tail. Mirajane's smile could have lit the room. Wonderful. I'll get the guild stamp. Where would you like your mark? After a moment's consideration, Goku pointed to his right shoulder. Here, I think. Minutes later, the Fairy Tail emblem was emblazoned on his skin in deep black that see me. D to absorb rather than reflect light, a perfect match for his developing apocalypse magic. Welcome to Fairy Tail, son Goku, Makarov said formally, extending his hand. May you find the answers you seek with us. As they shook hands, a ripple of energy passed between them, a momentary connection of magical power that made the guild master's eyes widen slightly. Neither commented on it, but Mirajane's observant gaze missed nothing. The impromptu celebration that followed gave Goku his first real taste of Fairy Tail culture, boisterous, chaotic, and fueled by genuine camaraderie. He found hymns. Elf engaged in conversations with guild members eager to learn about the dimensional traveler, though he kept details of his Saiyan heritage and battles purposely vague. Natsu, in particular, seemed determined to challenge him to a fight. Despite Urza's firm disapproval, come on, just a quick spar. The Fire Dragon Slayer insisted. I want to see what Apocalypse Dragon Slayer magic can do. Not until he has better control. Urza countered firmly. Ve enough without adding Apocalypse to the equation. Goku appreciated her caution, acutely aware of how his lack of control could endanger others. Without his lifelong mastery of Ki to fall back on, his current power was as unpredictable to him as it was to them. As evening approached, the celebration continued unabated. Goku found himself at the bar, watching the guild's interactions with anthropological interest while consuming enough food to bankrupt a small nation. They're something, aren't they? Observed Kana, who had claimed the barstool beside him. Her barrel of alcohol was nearly empty, yet she showed no signs of intoxication beyond a slight flush to her cheeks. They remind me of my friends back home, Goku admitted. Always ready to fight, but for each other when it counts. Kana nodded, taking another swig before responding. That's Fairy Tail in a nutshell. We're dysfunctional as hell, but we're family. She studied him over the rim of her drink. You're handling all this pretty well for someone thrown into another dimension. Goku shrugged. Not the strangest thing that's happened to me. Now that's a story I want to hear. Kana replied with genuine interest. But maybe another time. You look ready to drop despite trying to hide it. She was right. The excitement of the day had depleted Goku's still recovering energy reserves. Despite his Saiyan resilience, dimensional travel and magical transformation had taken their toll. I should probably rest, he acknowledged reluctantly. I've prepared a room for you in Fairy Hills. Mirajane informed him, appearing with impeccable timing. It's normally female-only dormitory, but we've made an exception given the circumstances. Goku thanked her, making his farewells to the guild members who were still coherent enough to notice his departure. As Mirajane led him through Magnolia's lamp-lit streets toward the dormitory, the cool evening air helped clear his mind. Thank you, he said suddenly, for finding me in the forest. For helping me. Mirajane glanced at him, her blue eyes reflecting the golden streetlights. You would have done the same. It was a simple statement, but it struck Goku with its accuracy. Despite their brief acquaintance, she had correctly assessed his character in a fundamental way. Yeah, he agreed, I would have. They walked in comfortable silence the rest of the way, arriving at a large building nestled against a forested hillside. Fairy Hills was clearly designed with female residents in mind, but the room Mirajane had prepared was comfortably neutral, a simple bed, dresser, and desk, with a window overlooking the forest where she had found him. It's not much, she apologized, but it should serve until we find something more permanent. It's perfect, Goku assured her honestly. After years of living in a small mountain home, luxury had never been his concern. Mirajane hesitated at the doorway. If you have another episode during the night, another vision from the Apocalypse Dragon, don't hesitate to call for help. My room is just down the hall. I will, he promised, though they knew his pride would make asking for help unlikely. With a final smile and good night, Mirajane departed, leaving Goku alone with his thoughts for the first time since awakening in this strange world. Exhaustion claimed him quickly once he lay down, but sleep brought no peace. Dreams, or memories not his own, flooded his unconscious mind with increasing intensity. A vast black dragon soaring above an ancient city, wings blotting out the sun. The same dragon facing 7 others, each elemental in nature, in what appeared to be a council or tribunal. Destruction on a scale Goku had witnessed only during his battles with universe-threatening entities like Buu and Beerus. And finally, a singular image that jolted him from sleep, the black dragon looking directly at him, its voice resonating not in his ears but in his very soul. Worthy vessel, it said simply. At last, Goku awoke with a start, his body covered in cold sweat, the room illuminated by dark energy emanating from his skin. The Apocalypse Dragon's magic responded to the dream, flowing through him in waves that threatened to overwhelm his control. Forcing himself to breathe evenly, Goku focused on containing the power, drawing on decades of key discipline. Gradually, the dark energy receded, flowing back into the magical container developing within him. Dawn was breaking outside his window, pale chasing away the lingering shadows of his dream. But the dragon's words remained, echoing in his mind with ominous clarity. Worthy vessel, whatever that meant, Goku suspected his time in this world was going to be far more complicated than a simple case of accidental dimensional travel. Miles from Magnolia, deep within a forest so ancient that sunlight rarely reached its floor, something stirred. The dimensional disturbance that had brought Goku to Earthland had created ripples in magical reality that continued to spread, awakening dormant powers and drawing attention from entities long removed from human affairs. In a cavern hidden beneath twisted roots and forgotten stones, eyes opened that had been closed for centuries. They glowed with malevolent purpose, reflecting the dark energy that now flowed through Goku's veins. A voice that was not meant for human ears spoke into the darkness. The vessel has arrived. The apocalypse approaches. Ancient wings unfurled, displacing air that hadn't moved in millennia. A tail that could level mountains stretched and flexed. Scales harder than diamond caught what little light penetrated the cavern, absorbing rather than reflecting it. The entity that had slumbered since the Dragon Civil War had awakened, drawn by the scent of familiar magic in an unfamiliar host. Acknowledge, the dragon of the apocalypse, had found a new prey. And in Magnolia, as Goku contemplated the meaning of his dream, a chill ran down his spine, the instinctive reaction of a warrior sensing a powerful enemy. His eyes narrowed as he looked toward the distant mountains. feeling a presence that resonated with the magic developing within him. Another dragon slayer, he wondered aloud. No, something far older. Something that recognized the power he now carried as its own. Something hunting. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Guild Bonds. The pre-dawn light filtered through Goku's window, casting long shadows across the wooden floor of his temporary quarters at Fairy Hills. Sleep had proven elusive after the Apocalypse Dragon's voice had echoed through his consciousness. Instead of attempting to return to restless slumber, he sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. Searching for the familiar center of calm he'd relied upon throughout decades of martial arts training. Ki meditation had been as natural as breathing to him since childhood. This new magical energy, however, responded differently, flowing not in the smooth, controlled channels he'd mastered, but in wild, unpredictable currents that seemed to possess their own consciousness. Each time he attempted to direct it, the Apocalypse Dragon's magic pushed back, testing his will rather than simply obeying it. "You're stubborn," Goku muttered, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple as he forced the dark energy to coalesce in his palm. "But so am I." The magic condensed reluctantly into a sphere of midnight energy, shot through with veins of crimson that pulsed like a heartbeat. Unlike the warm, familiar weight of a Ki sphere, this magic felt ancient and primal, as though he held a fragment of creation's beginning and end in his hand. A gentle knock at his door broke his concentration. The sphere dissipated instantly, the magic reabsorbing into his body with a sensation like ice water flowing through his veins. "Come in," he called, rising to his feet in a fluid motion. Mirajane entered, already dressed in a maroon dress that complemented her silver-white hair. Her bright smile faltered slightly as she noticed the lingering traces of magical energy surrounding him. "You're training already?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "You should be resting." Goku shrugged, offering his characteristic grin. "I've never been good at sitting still. Besides, the sooner I understand this magic, the sooner I can figure out how to get home." Mirajane studied him with perceptive blue eyes that seemed to see more than he intended to reveal. "You had another vision last night." It wasn't a question. Goku wondered briefly how she knew, then realized the dark circles under his eyes probably told the story clearly enough. "Yeah," he admitted. "The Apocalypse Dragon spoke to me this time. Called me a worthy vessel, whatever that means." Concern deepened in Mirajane's expression. "We should tell Master Makarov. Dragon Slayer magic always affects its users. But direct communication from a dragon essence is unusual, even for artificial dragon slayers." "Artificial dragon slayers who weren't raised by dragons," she clarified. "Those who gain their magic through lacrima implantation or, in your case, absorption of ambient magical particles." Goku nodded, filing away this information with everything else he was learning about this world's magic system. "I'll talk to Makarov today," he promised. "But first, I need food. A lot of food." Mirajane's concern melted into amusement. "I suspected as much. That's why I came to get you. Breakfast is waiting downstairs, and I convinced the kitchen staff to prepare extra portions." "You're amazing," Goku exclaimed with genuine enthusiasm that brought a light blush to Mirajane's cheeks. "It's nothing special," she demurred. "Just part of my job as guild hostess." Something in her tone caught Goku's attention, a hint of dismissal toward her own contributions that reminded him of conversations with Chi-Chi years ago, when she would downplay her own considerable strength. "It's not nothing," he countered seriously. "Where I come from, people who make sure everyone is fed and taken care of are just as important as the fighters. Maybe more important." The simple sincerity of his statement clearly surprised Mirajane, her eyes widening slightly before her smile returned with genuine warmth. "That's a lovely perspective, Goku. Thank you." The moment was interrupted by Goku's stomach unleashing a growl that would have made an actual dragon proud. Mirajane laughed, the sound musical in the morning quiet. "Let's get you fed before you start gnawing on the furniture." The dining hall of Fairy Hills was nearly empty at this early hour, most residents still sleeping off the previous night's guild celebration. Goku attacked the mountain of food awaiting him with characteristic enthusiasm, demolishing stacks of pancakes, eggs, bacon, and fruit with efficiency that left even Mirajane, who had witnessed his appetite before, somewhat awestruck. "Your metabolism is truly remarkable," she observed as he began his fourth plate. Even Natsu doesn't consume this much energy. Goku paused between bites. Considering this, it might be the magic adaptation using extra energy. When I'm training intensively back home, I eat about twice this much. Twice, Mirajane repeated, genuinely shocked. Where does it all go? He grinned, patting his flat stomach. Saiyan biology. We're designed for combat, so our bodies convert almost everything to energy rather than storing it. Saiyan, Mirajane repeated thoughtfully. You've mentioned this before. Is that your species? I assumed you were human. Goku hesitated, realizing he'd revealed more than intended. While he saw no reason to hide his heritage, years of experience had taught him that non-humans were often met with suspicion or fear, even when they meant no harm. I was raised as human, he explained carefully. Didn't find out I was Saiyan until I was an adult. We look human, mostly, but we're stronger, faster, and we can. He trailed off, deciding that explaining Super Saiyan transformations might be too much information too soon. And you can, Mirajane prompted gently. Transform, he finished simply. When necessary, though I'm not sure if I still can, with my ki replaced by this magic. Rather than fear or suspicion, Mirajane's expression showed only fascination. That's not so different from my Satan soul takeover magic. I can transform into demonic entities I've encountered and defeated. Goku's eyebrows rose in surprise. You can transform too. I'd like to see that sometime. Perhaps you will, if we take a mission together, she replied with a smile that held a hint of somethy. Beyond her usual sweetness, a flicker of the formidable warrior beneath the kind hostess. The prospect of seeing her abilities intrigued Goku. Throughout his life, he'd been drawn to strong opponents and allies alike. His Saiyan instincts responding to power regardless of its source. That Mirajane concealed such strength behind her gentle demeanor only made him more curious. Their conversation continued as Goku finished his meal, Mirajane answering his questions about guild life with patient detail. By the time they departed for the main guild hall, the sun had fully risen, bathing Magnolia in golden morning light. The city's beautiful, Goku observed as they walked, taking in architecture unlike anything in his world. Where his Earth had developed along technological lines, this LD had clearly evolved through magical innovation, resulting in a unique aesthetic that blended traditional and mystical elements. Magnolia has been home to fairy tale for generations, Mirajane explained proudly. The city and guild grew together over the centuries. Many businesses are specifically designed to support mages, magic shops, specialized cafes, equipment suppliers. And everyone just accepts magic as normal? Goku asked, watching a street vendor use minor levitation spells to arrange his fruit display. Of course, magic is fundamental to life in Fury, though only about 10% of the population can actually use it actively. Most people benefit from magical tools, transportation, and services without being mages themselves. This cultural integration of magic fascinated Goku. In his world, key users were rare exceptions, martial artists who dedicated their lives to esoteric training. Here, magical ability was treated as a profession or talent, neither hidden nor particularly revered. They reached the guild hall to find it already bustling despite the early hour. Mages gathered around the request board, examining potential jobs, while others sat in groups discussing plans or simply enjoying breakfast. The atmosphere reminded Goku of a military mess hall he'd visited once, professional but familial, with clear purpose underlying the casual interactions. Urav sat cross-legged on the bar counter, nursing a mug of something that smelled strongly alcoholic despite the hour. His eyes sharpened as he spotted Goku and Mirajane entering. Our Dimensiona. Traveler joins us for a proper day at last, the guild master called. Come, my boy, we have matters to discuss. Goku approached, nodding respectfully to the diminutive master whose power he could sense more clearly now that his magical sensitivity was developing. Makarov might appear elderly and small, but the vast well of magical energy he contained reminded Goku of Master Roshi, another case where appearances betrayed tremendous capability. Mirajane mentioned you had another draconic vision, Makarov began without preamble once Goku reached him. Tell me everything. Goku recounted the dream in detail, including the Apocalypse Dragon's cryptic message. As he spoke, he noticed several other guild members, including Urza and a blue-haired man with an intricate facial tattoo, listening attentively from nearby tables. When he finished, Makarov stroked his mustache thoughtfully. A worthy vessel. Concerning terminology, that. You think the dragon wants to possess him? The tattooed man asked, joining their conversation directly. His tone was formal, almost archaic compared to other guild members Goku had met. It's a possibility we cannot dismiss, Jelal, Makarov replied gravely. Though Dragon Slayer magic doesn't typically work that way. The dragon's essence may influence the Slayer, but full possession would be unprecedented. Acknowledge began as a Dragon Slayer, Jelal countered, causing a noticeable tension to ripple through those listening. Goku glanced between them, sensing unspoken history. Who's Acknowledge? A heavy silence fell before Urza answered, her voice carefully controlled. The Black Dragon of the Apocalypse. A dragon slayer who bathed in so much dragon blood that he eventually transformed into a dragon himself, the most destructive dragon in recorded history. The name triggered another flash of not memory in Goku's mind. Black wings against a blood-red sky, cities reduced to ash in a single breath. He steadied himself against the bar, fighting the disorienting vision. You're connecting to the collective dragon memory, Makarov observed. Your magic is accessing knowledge you shouldn't personally possess. Is that dangerous? Goku asked, regaining his composure. Knowledge itself is never dangerous, the guild master replied. But what comes with it might be. The Apocalypse Dragon existed during the Dragon Civil War, a time of unimaginable destruction. Those memories could influence you if you're not vigilant. Goku straightened, his expression resolute. I've dealt with mental influences before. Entities trying to corrupt my mind or take over my body. My will is my own. The simple confidence in his statement seemed to reassure Makarov. Good. That determination will serve you well. The guild master hopped down from the bar. Now then, as our newest member, it's time you undertook your first official mission. Nothing too strenuous while you're still adapting, but enough to test your developing abilities. I'll go with him. Mirajane volunteered immediately. My Satan soul can counter his apocalypse magic if something goes wrong. Urza stepped forward. I should accompany them as well. 3 S-class mages would ensure. S-class. Goku interrupted, confused by the terminology. A rank within the guild, Makarov explained. S-class mages have proven themselves capable of handling our most difficult and dangerous missions. Mirajane and Urza both hold this rank. Goku looked at Mirajane with new appreciation. He'd sensed her strength, but this formal acknowledgement of her capabilities confirmed his initial assessment. She was far more than the gentle hostess she appeared to be. Actually, Makarov continued, I believe a simpler team would be prudent for this first outing. Mirajane alone should suffice. Urza, I have another matter requiring your attention, reports of unusual activity near the northern border. Though Urza clearly wanted to protest, her respect for Makarov overrode her concerns. She nodded curtly. As you wish, master. But Goku, she added, turning to him with intense focus, when you return, I expect a full demonstration of your capabilities. I need to assess your combat potential myself. There was challenge in her voice that resonated with Goku's Saiyan instincts. He grinned, recognizing a kindred warrior spirit. Looking forward to it, Makarov handed Mirajane a mission flyer from behind the bar. This should be suitable. A small village in the eastern forest reporting strange magical phenomena in nearby ruins. Nothing overtly dangerous, but mysterious enough to warrant investigation. Mirajane reviewed the flyer, nodding her approval. Perfect. It's only half a day's journey, and the magical signature might help Goku attune to his new abilities. When do we leave? Goku asked, eager for action after days of recovery and adjustment. As soon as you're ready, Mirajane replied. Though you might want more appropriate clothing first. Your GI has seen better days. Goku looked down at his orange martial arts uniform, now tattered and stained from his dimensional transition and subsequent recovery. She had a point. I don't have anything else, he admitted. That's easily remedied, Mirajane assured him. Fairy Tail maintains equipment accounts for new members. Consider it an investment in our newest Dragon Slayer. 2 hours later, Goku and Mirajane departed Magnolia on foot, headed east toward the mountains. Goku wore new attire that blended his preference for mobility with this world's magical practicality, black pants reinforced with protective enchantments. A dark blue sleeveless tunic that allowed freedom of movement, and sturdy boots designed for varied terrain. His fairy tale guild mark remained visible on his right shoulder, the black emblem occasionally seeming to shift like smoke when his magic flared. "These clothes feel strange," Goku commented as they walked, rolling his shoulders experimentally. "Heavier than my GI, but somehow responsive. They're enhanced with basic protection spells," Mirajane explained. "Nothing that would impede movement, but enough to deflect minor magical attacks. Most mages wear something similar on missions." The path took them through Magnolia's outskirts and into farmland where workers tending fields waved cheerfully to Mirajane. Her popularity was evident in the warm greetings she received from everyone they passed, from children to elderly farmers. All seemed genuinely delighted to see the white-haired mage. "You're well known," Goku observed after a particularly enthusiastic greeting from a fruit vendor who insisted they take a basket of apples for their journey. Mirajane smiled modestly. "Fairy tale mages have protected Magnolia for generations. He townspeople are generous with their appreciation." "It's more than that," Goku insisted, having watched the interactions carefully. "They're not just grateful. They genuinely like you, specifically." A faint blush colored Mirajane's cheeks. "I try to remember everyone's names, their children, their concerns. Small kindnesses matter." This simple statement revealed volumes about her character. Despite her power and status, Mirajane invested in personal connections with ordinary citizens, something Goku had always respected in truly strong individuals. The greatest fighters he'd known had never felt the need to dominate or intimidate. Their strength was a responsibility, not a privilege. As farmland gave way to forest, their conversation shifted to more practical matters. Mirajane explained the mission parameters in greater detail. A small logging village had reported strange magical fluctuations near ancient ruins. Local wildlife behaved erratically around the site, and several loggers had experienced disorienting visions after approaching the stone structures. "Sounds familiar," Goku noted wryly, thinking of his own ongoing visions. "That's partly why Master selected this mission," Mirajane confirmed. "The magical signature described has similarities to what you're experiencing. It might help you understand your developing abilities." The forest deepened around them, giant trees creating a canopy that filtered sunlight into dappled patterns across the path. Birds called from unseen branches, and occasionally small magical creatures, unlike anything in Goku's world, darted across their path. "This world feels alive in a different way," Goku observed after they paused at a stream to refill their water containers. "He exists in my world, but it's mostly concentrated in living beings. Here, magic seems to be in everything, the trees, the water, even the air." Mirajane nodded, pleased by his perception. "Ethernano, magical particles, permeate all of Earthland. They concentrate in different patterns to create elemental affinities and magical phenomena. Mages can sense and manipulate these patterns with training. And dragon slayers, they're unique," she explained, resuming their walk along a narrowing trail. "Dragon slayer magic alters the mage's body to process Ethernano differently, more like dragons do. It's why your senses are probably becoming more acute, especially regarding magical signatures." Goku considered this, realizing she was right. Since awakening that morning, he'd noticed his awareness extending in unfamiliar ways. Sense carried more information, sounds revealed greater detail about their sources, and he could increasingly taste magical energy in the air, a sensation unlike anything he'd experienced with key sensing. "It's like learning a new language," he said finally. "I recognize the concepts, but the vocabulary is completely different." Mirajane glanced at him with appreciation for the analogy. "That's an excellent way to describe it. Most mages learn only one magical language in their lifetime. You're essentially becoming bilingual between your original key abilities and Dragon Slayer magic." Their conversation continued throughout the journey, Mirajane patiently answering Goku's questions about magic theory while he shared selective details about key manipulation and martial arts from his world. The exchange was comfortable and productive, each genuinely interested in the other's knowledge. By mid-afternoon, they reached the logging village, a collection of sturdy wooden buildings nestled in a clearing where the forest had been selectively harvested. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the sounds of sawmills and woodworking filled the air. Children played in the central square while adults went about their daily work. The community exuding practical industriousness. Their arrival attracted immediate attention. Fairy Tale's reputation clearly extended even to this remote settlement, as evidenced by the respectful greetings Mirajane received. The village headman, a broad-shouldered man with a magnificent beard streaked with gray, approached them directly. "Miss Strauss, thank you for coming so quickly," he greeted, bowing slightly. "And you've brought assistance." His gaze lingered on Goku with evident curiosity about the unfamiliar mage. "This is Goku, Fairy Tale's newest member," Mirajane introduced. "He specializes in unusual magical phenomena, which makes him perfect for your situation." Goku accepted the minor deception without comment, understanding the practical reasons for simplifying his background. The headman seemed satisfied, gesturing for them to follow him to the village's modest meeting hall. Inside, maps of the surrounding forest were spread across a large table, with one area circled in red ink. Several villagers, those who had directly experienced the strange occurrences, waited to share their accounts. "It started about 2 weeks ago," the headman explained, indicating the marked area. "These ruins have been here since before the village was founded, old dragon worship site, according to legend. Never gave us any trouble before. Then suddenly, lights started appearing at night. Strange sounds, animals behaving oddly, and the visions." Mirajane prompted gently. A young logger stepped forward, twisting his cap nervously in calloused hands. "I saw it first, ma'am. Was marking trees near the old stones when everything went wrong. Sky turned black as pitch in the middle of the day. Thought I heard wings beating. Then this voice in my head, speaking words I couldn't understand. When I came to, I was halfway back to the village with no memory of walking there." Others shared similar experiences: momentary disorientation near the ruins, glimpses of massive shadows passing overhead. An overwhelming sense of ancient presence. None had experienced anything as coherent as Goku's visions, but the pattern was unmistakable. "Dragon memory fragments," Mirajane murmured to Goku. "Like what you're experiencing, but weaker because these people have no Dragon Slayer affinity to focus the impressions." Goku nodded, already feeling a pull toward tea. He ruins, a resonance with the apocalypse magic developing within him. "How far to these stones?" "About an hour's hike northeast," the headman replied. "We can provide a guide." "That won't be necessary," Goku interrupted politely but firmly. "I can find them." The certainty in his voice raised eyebrows among the villagers, but Mirajane understood immediately. His magic is responding to the site. It's drawing him there. After gathering final details from the witnesses and assuring the village that they would resolve the situation, Goku and Mirajane departed toward the ruins. The forest grew denser as they hiked northeast. The trees more ancient, with thick undergrowth suggesting this area had never been logged. "The magical density is increasing," Mirajane observed as they walked. "Can you feel it?" Goku nodded, his senses increasingly attuned to the strange energy permeating the area. "It's like pressure, building the closer we get." "How's your control?" she asked, watching him carefully. "If this site is connected to dragon history, it might trigger more intense reactions in your developing magic." "I'll manage," Goku replied with characteristic confidence, though he appreciated her concern. "Actually, this might help. Controlled exposure to whatever's causing these phenomena could help me adapt faster." Mirajane seemed unconvinced but didn't press the issue. Instead, she moved closer to him as they walked, ready to intervene if necessary. The protective gesture wasn't lost on Goku, who found himself surprisingly touched by her vigilance. They reached the ruins as afternoon light began to wane, a circular arrangement of megalithic stones surrounding a central altar. The structures weren't particularly impressive in size or craftsmanship, but the magical energy emanating from them was palpable even to Goku's still developing senses. "This place is ancient," Mirajane whispered, her voice naturally lowering in response to the site's atmosphere. "Predating human civilization in this region, according to the patterns carved into the stones." Goku approached the central altar cautiously, instinctively dropping into a defensive stance as the apocalypse. Dragon magic within him surged in response to the location. Dark energy flickered around his hands like shadowy flames, responding to proximity rather than his conscious control. The magic recognizes this place, he said, his voice taking on a resonant quality that wasn't entirely his own. It was a communion site, where dragons gathered to share memory and knowledge. You're accessing the dragon memory directly, Mirajane observed, fascination overriding concern. What else can you sense? Goku placed his palm against the central altar stone, and the reaction was immediate. The CARVED symbols illuminated with midnight blue light, spreading outward to connect all the standing stones in a complex pattern. The ground beneath them trembled slightly as dormant magic awakened after centuries of slumber. Vision and reality blurred for Goku as images flooded his consciousness, not fragmented this time, but a coherent sequence of historical events. Dragons gathering in this very clearing, their massive forms dwarfing the stone structures they themselves had created. Asterisk. 7 dragon leaders, each representing a fundamental aspect of existence, conducting rituals to preserve our collective knowledge against some impending catastrophe. Asterisk. The apocalypse dragon, midnight scales gleaming under a blood-red sky, arguing vehemently with the others, its voice resonating with both destruction and wisdom. Asterisk. The cycle cannot be broken, it insisted. What exists must end for renewal to begin. Your preservation efforts only delay the inevitable. Asterisk. The other dragons outvoting it, proceeding with a ritual to seal away portions of their knowledge and power in locations throughout the land. Asterisk. The apocalypse dragon's final warning. When the imbalance grows too great, my essence will find a worthy vessel. The end will come, as it must, for a new beginning to follow. Asterisk. Goku gasped as the vision released him, stumbling backward from the altar. Mirajane caught him, her slender form surprisingly strong as she steadied his much larger body. What did you see? She asked urgently. History, Goku replied, his breathing ragged. Dragon history. This place, it's a knowledge repository. The apocalypse dragon opposed its creation, but the other dragons overruled it. What knowledge worthy preserving? Everything. Their magic, their memories, their understanding of existence itself. Goku looked around at the glowing stones with new comprehension. They knew they were dying out, or leaving. They created these sites to preserve what would otherwise be lost. Mirajane processed this information with remarkable composure. And the phenomena affecting the villagers. The repository is degrading, Goku explained, somehow knowing this with certainty. After centuries, the containment magic is failing. Knowledge is leaking out in fragments, affecting anyone sensitive enough to perceive it. Can you stabilize it? The question gave Goku pause. The magical theory involved was far beyond his understanding, yet somehow he knew exactly what needed to be done, knowledge flowing into him from the apocalypse dragon's memories. I think so, he said slowly. But I'll need to use the apocalypse magic directly. It's risky. Mirajane's expression turned resolute. I'll help you. My Satan soul can absorb magical overflow if necessary. Their eyes met in a moment of silent understanding, 2 warriors acknowledging the danger while committing to face it together. Goku nodded once, then returned to the altar, this time with deliberate purpose. The repository needs rebalancing, he explained, positioning his hands over specific symbols that seemed to glow more intensely in his presence. The apocalypse aspect was intentionally minimized in the original sign because the other dragons feared its destructive potential. But without that aspect, the preservation magic becomes unstable over time. Balance through controlled destruction, Mirajane observed, taking position opposite him. Like controlled forest fires preventing larger conflagrations. Exactly. Goku closed his eyes, drawing on the apocalypse magic within him. Unlike his earlier attempts to force the power to his will, this time he worked with its natural tendencies, allowing it to flow toward its original purpose rather than redirecting it. Dark energy spiraled from his hands into the stone, following ancient channels carved specifically for this magic. The midnight blue glow shifted, threads of crimson and gold appearing within the patterns as the repository's magical structure realigned itself. Mirajane watched intently, ready to intervene. When the energy flow intensified beyond what the stones could initially absorb, she activated her transformation without hesitation. Satan's soul, she intoned. Her body enveloped in magical light. Goku felt the shift in magical pressure before he saw the transformation. When he opened his eyes, Mirajane's appearance had changed. Ed dramatically, white hair standing upward, skin partially covered in dark scales, clawed hands, and a tail swishing behind her. Most striking were her eyes, darker, wilder, yet still unmistakably hers. The demonic form radiated power that complemented his own apocalypse magic perfectly, one representing destruction's chaos, the other its purpose. Working in tandem, they guided the repository's rebalancing, Mirajane absorbing excess energy that might otherwise have destabilized the process. Minutes stretched into an hour as they worked, sweat beading on both their brows from the sustained magical exertion. Finally, the repository accepted the last of the apocalypse aspect, the stones settling into a balanced glow that faded gradually to dormancy, not extinguished, but properly contained once more. Goku lowered his hands, exhaustion washing over him as the magical connection severed. Across from him, Mirajane released her Satan soul transformation, returning to her normal appearance with a similar expression of fatigue. That was, she began. Incredible, Goku finished, genuine admiration in his voice. Your transformation, it's amazing. I've never felt demonic energy used that way before. Mirajane smiled, pleased by his reaction. Most people fear Satan's soul. They see only the destructive potential, not the control or purpose behind it. I see both, Goku assured her. Quote, just like you saw both in the apocalypse magic. Something shifted between them in that moment, mutual respect deepening into a connection based on genuine understanding. Both possessed powers others feared. Both understood the responsibility such abilities entailed. As they departed the ruins, now properly stabilized and no longer leaking disruptive energy, Goku found himself sharing stories from his battles that he hadn't initially planned to reveal, moments when his Saiyan power had frightened even his allies, times when transformation had brought him to the edge of losing himself. Mirajane, in turn, spoke of her own journey with Satan's soul, how she had initially feared her takeover magic, then embraced it as part of herself rather than an alien presence. Her experiences provided valuable perspective for Goku's current situation with the Apocalypse Dragon magic. They reached the village as evening fell, reporting their success to the grateful headman. The mission complete, they EPTED the village's hospitality for the night rather than beginning the return journey in darkness. Over dinner in the village's communal hall, Goku noticed a subtle change in Mirajane's interactions with him, a newfound ease. As though some barrier had fallen away during their work at the ruins. Her smiles came more readily, her laughter more unreserved, her gaze lingering when she thought he wasn't looking. For his part, Goku found himself increasingly drawn to her presence. While romance had never been his primary focus, much to Chi-Chi's occasional frustration, he wasn't oblivious to connection when it formed. Something was developing between himself and Mirajane that transcended simple friendship or professional alliance. What that might mean in the context of his determination to redo RN home remained an unasked question that hovered between them as they retired to separate rooms in the village's modest inn. The journey back to Magnolia the following day was companionable, Ir shared experience at the ruins having established a foundation of trust that made conversation flow naturally. They reached the guild hall by mid-afternoon to find it unusually subdued, members gathered in small groups. Speaking in hushed tones that immediately set Goku on alert. Makarov spotted them from his position at the bar and gestured them over urgently. Welcome back, he greeted, his usual jovial manner subdued. I trust your mission was successful. Yes, Master, Mirajane reported. The ruins contained a degrading dragon knowledge repository. Goku was able to stabilize it using his apocalypse magic. The village should have no further issues. Excellent work, Makarov acknowledged, though his attention seemed divided. Goku, your timing is fortuitous. The Magic Council has sent representatives regarding your situation. They're waiting in my office. The council already knows about me. Goku asked, surprised. We registered you as a guild member, which requires reporting to the council. Mirajane explained. Additionally, your arrival created magical disturbances significant enough to register on their monitoring systems. Makarov nodded gravely. Their particularly interested in the Apocalypse Dragon Slayer magic you're developing. Such power doesn't appear without drawing official attention. Goku straightened, instinctively preparing for potential conflict. Are they here to help or interfere? That remains to be seen, the guild master replied diplomatically. The council's primary concern is magical stability throughout Fury. A-dimensional, traveler absorbing extinct dragon slayer magic certainly qualifies as a stability concern. Before Goku could respond, Urza approached from across the hall, her armor gleaming in the afternoon light filtering through the high windows. "You've returned," she stated, her tone neutral but her gaze assessing. "How was the mission?" "Enlightening," Goku replied simply. "I learned more about the Apocalypse Dragon's history and purpose." Urza nodded curtly. "Good. You'll need that understanding for what's coming. The council representatives are not all sympathetic to our guild's tendency to harbor unusual individuals. I can handle bureaucrats," Goku assured her with confidence born from years of avoiding the World Martial Arts Tournament officials who wanted to study his techniques. "These aren't mere bureaucrats," Urza cautioned. "They're powerful mages with political authority. Approach with respect." Goku appreciated the advice, recognizing that Urza's stern manner came from Concern for fairy tale rather than personal rigidity. He was beginning to understand the scarlet-haired warrior's perspective. Her devotion to the guild manifested as protective strictness rather than Mirajane's nurturing approach. "I'll be diplomatic," he promised, earning a skeptical look from both women that suggested his reputation for straightforwardness had already become established. Makarov led them upstairs to his office, where 3 individuals waited. 2 wore the elaborate robes and stern expressions Goku expected from official representatives, but the third, a woman with dark purple hair and calculating eyes, immediately captured his attention. Unlike her companions, she studied him with genuine interest rather than suspicious assessment. "Master Makarov," the eldest representative began formally. "We appreciate your cooperation in this matter." "Fairy Tail always cooperates with reasonable council requests," Makarov replied, emphasis subtly placed on reasonable. "May I present Son Goku, our newest member, and Mirajane Strauss, who has been assisting with his transition." The introductions continued. Councillor Draculos and Councillor Gran, representing the Magic Council's Research and Security Divisions respectively. The purple-haired woman was introduced last. "Ultir Milkovich, from our Temporal Investigations Unit," Councillor Gran stated. Given the dimensional nature of this case, her expertise was deemed relevant. Ultir stepped forward, extending her hand to Goku. "A pleasure to meet Earthland's first Apocalypse Dragon Slayer in recorded history. Your arrival has created quite a stir in council chambers." There was something in her tone, a subtle undercurrent of amusement or secret knowledge, that immediately put Goku on guard. Her magical signature felt complex, layered in ways the others were not. "I didn't exactly plan to be here," Goku replied, accepting her handshake briefly. "Or to absorb this magic. Few of us plan our most significant transformations." Ultir responded with a knowing smile. "Yet here you are, existing at an intersection of impossibilities. A dimensional traveler carrying extinct magic. Fascinating." Councillor Draculos cleared his throat impatiently. "We're not here to philosophize, Miss Milkovich. We have specific concerns regarding magical stability and interdimensional contamination." The questioning gone in earnest then. Detailed inquiries about Goku's origin world, the entity that had sent him here, the circumstances of his arrival, and his experiences with the Apocalypse Dragon magic. Goku answered honestly but selectively, instinct warning him against revealing too much about Saiyan capabilities or the true extent of his normal power. Throughout the interrogation, Ultir asked fewer questions but listened more intently than her colleagues, occasionally making notes in a small book she kept inside her cloak. When the topic turned to the visions and dragon memories, her interest visibly intensified. "You've experienced direct communication from the Apocalypse Dragon essence?" she asked when Goku mentioned the "worthy vessel" statement. "Just once, in a dream," he confirmed. "Though, I've accessed what seemed to be its memories several times, especially at the ruins yesterday." "And these memories, do they feel external, or as though they've always been part of you?" Ultir pressed, earning impatient looks from her colleagues that she ignored entirely. The question gave Goku pause. "Neither, exactly. They feel familiar but not personal. Like remembering something I watched rather than experienced directly." Ultir nodded as though this confirmed a private theory. "Interesting. Dragon Slayer magic always carries echoes of its original wielder, but direct communication suggests a more intentional connection." Are you suggesting the Apocalypse Dragon selected him specifically? Mirajane asked, speaking for the first time since the questioning began. I'm suggesting nothing, Altair replied smoothly. Merely exploring possibilities. Interdimensional travel creates ripples in temporal magical fabric. These ripples may have awakened dormant magical resonances. Counselor Gran snorted derisively. Your department's obsession with temporal theory is noted, Milkovich. However, our immediate concern is whether this individual poses a threat to Fiore's magical stability. He doesn't, Makarov stated firmly. Goku has demonstrated exceptional control over developing magic that would overwhelm most mages. Furthermore, his mission yesterday proves his abilities can restore magical balance rather than disrupt it. The debate continued for another hour, with the council representatives demanding increasingly technical details about Goku's developing abilities, and Makarov steadfastly defending his guild members' right to privacy and autonomy. Eventually, a compromise was reached. Goku would submit to periodic magical assessment by council researchers, but would remain under Fairy Tail's authority for training and missions. As the meeting concluded and the representatives prepared to depart, Altair lingered behind her colleagues. A word in private, if I may, she requested of Goku once Makarov and Mirajane had escorted the other counselors from the office. Goku nodded, curious about what this enigmatic woman might want to discuss without witnesses. Your situation interests me beyond official capacity, Altair began once they were alone, her formal manner dropping away like a discarded cloak. I have personal experience with displacement from one's proper time and place. You're not just a council investigator, Goku observed, confirming his earlier suspicion. A genuine smile touched her lips. Perceptive. No, my interests extend beyond council research. I believe your arrival may be connected to prophecies of spent years studying, prophecies concerning a convergence of magical forces that could either heal or further fracture the dimensional boundaries. And which outcome are you hoping for? Goku asked directly, watching her reaction carefully. That depends entirely on you, she replied cryptically. The Apocalypse Dragon's magic doesn't simply destroy, it resets, cleanses, prepares for renewal. The question is whether you'll use it for its intended purpose when the time comes. Which is, Altair's expression turned serious. To repair what's broken, even if that requires breaking it further first. The dimensional walls between worlds have been weakening for centuries. Your arrival may be symptom or solution, perhaps both. She removed a small crystal sphere from her cloak, a lacrima that pulsed with temporal magic. If you wish to learn more about your purpose here, and potentially find your way home, contact me. This communication lacrima is attuned to my magical signature. Goku accepted the crystal cautiously. Why help me? What do you get from this? Let's just say I understand what it means to be displaced from where you belong. Altair answered, her eyes momentarily revealing depths of pain at odds with her composed exterior. And I've learned that coincidences rarely exist in matters of this magnitude. With that enigmatic statement, she departed, leaving Goku with more questions than answers and a distinct feeling that Altair Milkovich knew far more than she had revealed to either him or her council colleagues. Evening found Goku on the guild hall's roof, seeking solitude after the intensity of the council interrogation and Altair's cryptic conversation. The stars above Agnolia differed from those in High Home Dimension, constellations arranged in unfamiliar patterns that emphasized his displacement from everything familiar. He sat cross-legged near the edge, attempting to meditate while processing the day's revelations. The Apocalypse Dragon magic had responded differently at the ruins, more cooperatively when aligned with its original purpose. Understanding that purpose seemed key to mastering the power now developing within him. Thought I might find you up here, a voice called from behind him. Roof brooding is classic new guild member behavior. Goku turned to see Kana approaching, a bottle in one hand and two glasses in the other. Unlike their previous encounter, she seemed completely sober, her movements precise and her gaze sharp. Not brooding, he corrected with a small smile. Meditating, or trying to. Same difference. Kana settled beside him without waiting for invitation, setting the glasses between them and pouring amber liquid into both. Council meetings tend to leave everyone needing either meditation or alcohol. I prefer the latter, but I'm open to combining approaches. Goku accepted the offered glass, though he rarely drank alcohol. The gesture of companionship mattered more than the beverage itself. "Thanks," he said simply. "No problem." Kana gazed outward over Magnolia's nightscape, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "Heard you stabilized a dragon repository yesterday. Impressive for someone still learning their magic." Mirajane helped, Goku acknowledged. Her Satan soul balanced the energy flow perfectly. Kana nodded knowingly. "Myra's transformation magic complements yours. Destruction and rebirth, chaos and purpose. Two sides of a cosmic coin." The insight surprised Goku. Beneath her carefree exterior, Kana clearly possessed sharp magical understanding and perception. "You see a lot," he observed. "Card magic involves pattern recognition," she explained with a casual shrug that didn't quite disguise her intelligence. "I read situations the same way I read cards, looking for connections, influences, resonances." "And what do you read in my situation?" Kana took a slow sip before answering. "That you're exactly where you need to be, even if it's not where you want to be." She raised a hand to forestall his protest. "I know you want to get home. But there's purpose in your precinct. Here, the cards have been clear about that since you arrived." Ultir Milkovich said something similar, Goku admitted, watching for her reaction. Kana's expression darkened slightly. "Ultir is complicated, brilliant but driven by personal agenda. If she's interested in you, be careful." "You know her." "Know of her," Kana clarified. "She has a reputation in magical research circles for pursuing forbidden knowledge, particularly regarding time magic and dimensional theory. The council keeps her close because her insights are valuable, but few trust her completely." This aligned with Goku's own impression of the purple-haired mage. "She gave me a communication lacrima. Said she might help me find a way home." Kana studied him over the rim of her glass. "And you're wondering whether to trust her offer?" "Among other things," Goku confirmed. "This world is complex. The politics, the magic systems, the hidden agendas. In my world, problems were usually straightforward: find the strongest enemy, defeat them. Save the day." A genuine laugh escaped Kana. "That sounds wonderfully simple. Here, the strongest enemy might be wearing the face of an ally, or fighting for reasons that make them technically right despite their methods." They lapsed into comfortable silence, sipping their drinks and watching the stars. After several minutes, Kana spoke again, her tone more personal than before. "Can I ask what it's like, having Dragon Slayer magic developing inside you?" Goku considered the question seriously. "It's like having another consciousness alongside my own. Not controlling me, but offering perspective, power, memories that aren't mine. The Apocalypse Dragon doesn't seem malevolent, just absolute in its understanding of cycles." "Cycles. Creation requires destruction," Goku explained, drawing on concepts he'd learned from Whis but filtering them through his new magical understanding. "Nothing lasts forever, nor should it. The Apocalypse Dragon embodied the necessary end that makes new beginnings possible." Kana nodded thoughtfully. "That's profound for someone who claims they're not brooding." The comment broke the philosophical tension, drawing a genuine laugh from Goku. Kana joined him, their shared amusement creating a moment of connection that felt surprisingly natural despite their brief acquaintance. Their conversation continued late into the night, shifting from magical theory to personal histories. Goku shared edited versions of his major battles and life experiences, while Kana revealed her own journey as a mage, joining Fairy Tail as a child, developing her card magic, finding family among guild members when her own was fractured. "My father's actually a Fairy Tail mage," she admitted after several drinks had lowered her usual guards. "Guildarts Clive, strongest mage in the guild. But he doesn't know I'm his daughter." "You haven't told him?" Goku asked, surprised. Kana shook her head, staring into her glass. Aimed to Fairy Tail specifically to find him, but never found the right moment. Years passed. Now it feels too late, too complicated. "It's never too late for family," Goku said with the simple surtai. NTY of someone who had died and returned to his loved ones more than once. "If he's a good man, he'll be happy to know he has a daughter." "It's not that simple," Kana protested. "It can be," Goku insisted gently. "Sometimes we create complexity where simplicity would serve better." Something in his straightforward perspective seemed to resonate with Kana. She studied him with new appreciation. as though seeing past his physical strength to the clarity of character beneath. Maybe you're right, she conceded finally. I'll think about it. Their conversation eventually wound down as exhaustion claimed them both. As they descended from the roof to return to their respective quarters, Kana paused at the stairwell. Thanks for listening, she said simply. Most people see the drinking and the jokes, not much else. I see you, Goku replied with characteristic directness that made her breath catch slightly. You're stronger than you let people know. The moment hung between the a connection forming that neither had anticipated. Then Kana smiled, recovering her usual demeanor. Get some rest, Dragon Boy. Tomorrow you face Urza in that assessment she's been planning. You'll need all your strength for that. Morning arrived with clear skies and perfect conditions for magical combat assessment. Word had spread throughout the guild about Urza's planned evaluation of their newest Dragon Slayer, drawing a substantial audience to Fairy Tail's training grounds behind the main building. Goku arrived to find an impromptu arena established, with guild members gathered. In anticipation of what promised to be an impressive display, Makarov stood at one end of the field, serving as both referee and safety monitor. Urza waited at the center, her standard Heart Cruise armor gleaming in the morning sun. Her expression was serious but not unfriendly as Goku approached. Are you prepared? She asked without preamble. This assessment will test your current capabilities and control. I need to understand what you can do in combat situations. Goku nodded, rolling his shoulders to loosen muscles still slightly stiff from yesterday's magical exertion. I'm ready. I should warn you, I'm still learning how this magic works. That's precisely why we're doing this, Urza replied. Controlled combat often reveals magical capabilities that meditation alone cannot access. Instinctive responses under pressure can unlock understanding. Her assessment made perfect sense to Goku, who had experienced similar breakthroughs during intense battles throughout his life. From his first Kamehameha against King Piccolo to achieving Ultra Instinct against Jiren, his greatest developments had come during combat rather than training. What are the rules? He asked. Edie dropping into a defensive stance that drew appreciative murmurs from observing guild members. No lethal force, Urza stated. Beyond that, use whatever means you have available. I need to see why. Our full capabilities to properly assess them. With those simple parameters established, she stepped back, re-equipping instantly into her Heaven's Wheel armor, a spectacular transformation that replied. Her standard plate with a winged silver ensemble surrounded by dozens of hovering swords. Begin when ready, she called, the floating blades around her beginning to rotate in anticipation. Goku took a moment to center himself, reaching for the Apocalypse Dragon magic rather than his inaccessible ki. The power responded more readily than before, dark energy flowing through his meridians in controlled currents rather than the wild surges he'd experienced initially. Apocalypse Dragon's gravitational field, he intoned, instinctively naming a technique he hadn't consciously developed but somehow knew from the dragon memories. The air around him distorted as magical pressure increased exponentially, creating a localized gravity well that affected everything within 30 feet. Grass flattened against the ground. Loose equipment at the field's edge crashed downward, and several unprepared observers staggered under the sudden pressure. Urza, however, merely smiled, a warrior's appreciation for an effective opening move. Despite the increased gravity, she launched herself forward with barely diminished speed, her wings providing magical propulsion that compensated for the gravitational distortion. Impressive, she acknowledged, sending a wave of swords curving toward him from multiple angles. But how's your mobility under your own magic? The question was pointed. Many mages created effects they themselves weren't immune to, a rookie mistake that limited tactical options. Goku answered not with words but with action, moving through his own gravity field with fluid grace that belied the crushing pressure. His movements weren't as fast as his normal capabilities, but they demonstrated exceptional adaptation to the magic he'd created. Where Urza's sword struck, he was no longer present, his martial arts experience translating effectively to magical combat despite the different power system. You're not just a power mage, Urza observed approvingly as they exchanged a rapid series of blows. You have trained combat discipline. Been fighting most of my life, Goku replied, narrowly avoiding a sword that would have pinned his sleeve to a nearby tree. Different power, same principles. The exchange continued, escalating gradually as both fighters tested boundaries. Urza cycled through several armor sets, Flame Empress, Flight Armor, Lightning Empress, each offering different offensive and defensive capabilities that forced Goku to adapt continuously. For his part, Goku explored the Apocalypse Dragon's magical repertoire through combat necessity, disco. Varying techniques he hadn't consciously known. Apocalypse Dragon's crushing fist. Dark energy coalesced around his hand, increasing the density of his strike exponentially without changing its physical mass. Apocalypse Dragon's roar. Unlike other Dragon Slayer's breath attacks that manifested as elemental forces, his roar created a wave of concentrated magical pressure that momentarily distorted space itself in its path. Apocalypse Dragon's Void Step. A short-range teleportation achieved by briefly existing in the space between spaces, similar to instant transmission but utilizing magical displacement rather than ki sensing. With each technique, Goku's understanding of and connection to the Apocalypse magic deepened. The power felt increasingly natural, responding to his intentions with greater fluidity and precision. Urza matched him technique for technique, her experience and versatility compensating for the raw power of his Dragon Slayer magic. Where he created effects of greater magnitude, she countered with precise application of specific magical properties, nullifying, redirecting, or absorbing his attacks through strategic armor changes. The assessment evolved into something more like a dance than a battle, each participant gaining respect for the other's capabilities with every exchange. The audience watched in increasing awe as the display intensified, Magica. Pressure building across the training ground. Finally, after nearly an hour of continuous combat, Makarov called a halt. Both Goku and Urza stood breathing heavily, surrounded by evidence of their exertion, cratered earth, severed tree limbs, and residual magical energy that continued to distort air currents around them. "I believe we've seen enough for today," the guild master announced, unable to completely hide his pride in both combatants. Any further escalation might require rebuilding the entire training ground. Urza nodded her agreement, re-equipping back to her standard armor. She approached Goku with hand extended, a warrior's acknowledgement of worthy opposition. "Your control is better than I expected for someone so new to their magic," she stated, her tone conveying genuine respect rather than mere politeness. "You fight with a strategist's mind beneath a powerhouse's capabilities." Goku accepted the handshake, recognizing the significant approval it represented from me, one of Urza's stature within the guild. "You're incredible," he replied honestly. "I've never fought anyone who could change their entire combat style mid-battle like that." The sincere admiration in his voice brought a faint blush to Urza's cheeks, a reaction that clearly surprised those guild members close enough to notice. Urza Scarlet was not known for being easily flustered by compliments. "We should train together regularly," she suggested as they walked back toward the gathering of impressed guild members. "Your style complements mine in ways that would benefit us both." "I'd like that," Goku agreed readily. "Back home, I always learned fastest with a strong training partner." Something shifted in their dynamic with that simple exchange, mutual warrior respect evolving into the beginning of friendship. Urza's initial suspicion had been replaced by professional appreciation and personal interest in the dimensional traveler whose fighting spirit so closely matched her own. The crowd dispersed gradually, many members approaching to congratulate both combatants on the impressive display. Natsu was particularly vocal, practically vibrating with excitement. "Fight me next," he demanded, flames already licking at his fingertips. "That was awesome. I want to test my Fire Dragon Slayer magic against your Apocalypse stuff." Perhaps after Goku has had time to recover and further develop his control. Urza interceded firmly, much to Natsu's disappointment. Mirajane appeared with towels and water for both of them, her smile warm as she handed Goku his portion. "That was quite a performance. You've made remarkable progress in controlling the magic." The assessment helped, Goku acknowledged, gratefully accepting the water. "Fighting Urza forced adaptations I might avenue taken weeks to discover through meditation alone. That's why she's one of our S-class combat instructors," Mirajane explained. "Urza has an unparalleled ability to push mages beyond their perceived limitations." As the training ground cleared, Levi Magarden approached with several ancient tomes tucked under her arm. The small, Blue-haired script mage had been observing the entire assessment with scholarly intensity. Goku, if you have time later, I'd like to discuss your magical signature, she requested. I've been researching interdimensional theory since your arrival, and your cone at demonstrations provided valuable data on how your original energy system is interacting with Earthland's Ethernano. You think that might help me find a way home? Goku asked, immediately interested. Levi's expression turned cautiously optimistic. It's possible. The magical physics involved are complex, but understanding the interaction between dimensional energies is the first step toward potentially creating a stable passage. I'll help however I can, Goku promised. With arrangements made to meet Levi in the guild's library that afternoon, Goku headed to the bathing facilities to clean up after the intense assessment. The training had left him physically tired but mentally invigorated. Progress always energized him, regardless of the specific power system involved. As he dressed after bathing, Goku caught his reflection in a mirror and paused, noticing subtle changes in his appearance. His eyes occasionally flickered with traces of the apocalypse magic when his emotions intensified, and his muscles seemed denser, more defined, adaptations to the magical energy flowing through his system. The Dragon Slayer magic was changing him physically, just as Makarov had warned. The question remained whether these changes would eventually allow him to return home, or bind him permanently to this new world and its magic. The afternoon with Levi proved both enlightening and concerning. The guild's library contained thousands of magical texts accumulated over centuries, many dealing with theoretical magical physics that exceeded even Bulma's scientific understanding. You sat at a large table while Levi conducted various magical analyses, measuring his magical signature, comparing it to recorded Dragon Slayer patterns, and testing how it interacted with different magical artifacts. It's fascinating, she murmured, adjusting special glasses that allowed her to see magical energy directly. Your magical container is developing unlike any I've ever studied. Most Jess are born with a container that grows gradually throughout their lives. Yours is forming rapidly around a core that isn't Ethernano-based. My key, Goku confirmed. My life energy from my home dimension. Levi nodded, making detailed notes. Exactly. It's as though your key is serving as a seed crystal around which the magical container is forming. But the interaction is bidirectional. The magic is also modifying your key, creating something entirely new. Is that why I can't access my normal abilities? Goku asked, finally having this critical question addressed directly. Partially, Levi confirmed. Your energy is being restructured at a fundamental level. The Apocalypse Dragon magic isn't simply adding to your existing abilities, it's transforming them into something that can access properly within Earthland's magical framework. The implications troubled Goku. So even if I found a way back to my dimension, you might not be able to convert back, Levi finished gently, understanding his concern. At least, not without another complete energy transformation. This confirmation of his growing fear should have devastated Goku, yet he found himself accepting the possibility with surprising equanimity. Perhaps part of him had already suspected this truth, or perhaps the Apocalypse Dragon's influence was helping him embrace transformation rather than resist it. There's more, Levi continued, hesitant but determined to share her complete findings. The Apocalypse Dragon magic appears to be awakening latent magical potential that would normally remain dormant in Earthland natives. Your dimensional transition created unique conditions that allow this activation. What does that mean practically? It means your magical capacity will likely exceed normal parameters for Dragon Slayers. She explained. But it also means the transformation will continue progressing, potentially accelerating as your body fully adapts. Goku absorbed this information thoughtfully. Makarov mentioned something about Dragon Slayers eventually taking on draconic traits with extended magic use. Levi nodded, clearly impressed by his retention of magical theory. Dragonificate. Ion. The gradual transformation of Dragon Slayers toward their draconic power source. It typically takes decades to manifest significantly, but your case is unprecedented. Their research continued until evening, with Levi documenting everything for further analysis. While they had discovered no immediate solution for interdimensional travel, they had established a theoretical framework for understanding Goku's unique magical development. Thank you, Goku said sincerely as they concluded for the day. Your research might not get me home immediately, but understanding what's happening helps me plan next steps. Levi smiled, her intellectual enthusiasm undimmed despite hours of intensive work. That's what fairy tale does, we help each other, especially with the seemingly impossible challenges. As they emerged from the library into the main guild hall, Goku found the evening gathering in full swing, members drinking, eating, and socializing after completing the day's missions. Despite having been a member for less than 2 weeks, he already recognized the patterns and personalities that made up Fairy Tail's unique culture. Natsu and Gray arguing over trivial matters until Lucy or Urza intervened. Elfman proclaiming various activities to be manly. Happy offering fish to Carla, who invariably declined with dignified disdain. Macau and Wakaba reminiscing about missions from decades past. And through it all, Mirajane moving between tables with drinks and food, her perpetual smile and kind words maintaining the harmonious atmosphere despite occasional eruptions of chaos. Goku found himself drawing parallels to gatherings at Kame House or Capsule Corp. Different individuals but similar dynamics of found family connected by shared purpose rather than blood relation. The comparison brought both comfort and melancholy, reminding him of what he'd lost while appreciating what he'd found. As he contemplated these thoughts, Kana appeared beside him, her uncanny ability to sense emotional shifts apparently extending beyond her card magic. Heavy thinking after a heavy training day, she observed, nudging him toward the bar. Not a great combination. Come on, food and doctor. Ink are better companions for contemplation than dusty books. Goku allowed himself to be guided to the bar, where Mirajane had already prepared a plate that would have fed 3 normal mages but constituted a light meal by his standards. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched him. She'd noticed his arrival and anticipated his needs without being asked. How was the research session? Mirajane inquired as she placed the food before him. Informative, Goku replied, deciding to focus on the positive aspects rather than the potentially permanent nature of his transformation. Levi's brilliant. She understands magical theory that would confuse even the scientists I knew back home. She's our resident genius, Kana confirmed, claiming the barstool beside him. If anyone can figure out interdimensional travel, it's Levi. The conversation flowed naturally from there, with others occasionally joining or departing as the evening progressed. Urza stopped by briefly to discuss scheduling regular training sessions. Natsu attempted again to challenge Goku before being distracted by Gray's casual insult. Lucy, a celestial spirit mage Goku had met only briefly before, asked thoughtful questions about his home dimension's constellations. Through it all, Goku found himself increasingly at ease among these new companions. Their acceptance of him, powers, strange background, and all, resonated with the unconditional friendship he'd experienced with the Z fighters. Different world, similar hearts. As the gathering began to wind down, with many members departing for home or dormitories, Kana remained at the bar, nursing her drink with unusual moderation. Walk with me, she suggested once Goku had finished his meal. I could use some fresh air, and you look like you could use a break from thinking. The invitation was casual but her eyes conveyed deeper purpose. Goku nodded, curious about what the card mage might ant to discuss away from the guild's many ears. They walked in comfortable silence through Magnolia's night streets, the city peaceful under a canopy of unfamiliar stars. Kana led them to a small park overlooking the cathedral square, where benches provided perfect viewing of both the impressive architecture and the star-filled sky. I did a reading about you today, she said once they were seated, her voice more serious than her usual tone. Not because anyone asked, just for myself. To understand what's happening. And, Goku prompted when she didn't immediately continue. Kana withdrew her deck from the small bag at her hip, shuffling the cards with practiced motions before laying 3 face-up between them. Unlike standard playing cards, these featured intricate magical illustrations that seemed to shift slightly in the moonlight. The Wanderer, she identified the first card, showing a solitary figure at a crossroads. That's you, displaced yet purposeful. The second is the Dragon, power that transforms or consumes, depending on the wielder's heart. Her finger moved to the final card, depicting a tower surrounded by lightning. And the Tower, sudden change, destruction of false structures, revelation through upheaval. That doesn't sound particularly encouraging, Goku observed. Kana's lips curved in a small smile. That's because you're hearing only the surface interpretation. The positioning and relationship between cards matter as much as their individual meanings. She traced invisible lines connecting the three cards. The wanderer isn't just lost, he's seeking. The dragon isn't just powerful, it's protective of what matters. And the tower doesn't just destroy, it clears away what's unsustainable to make room for what's real. Her eyes met his, unusually serious. Whatever's happening to you, this apocalypse dragon magic, the dimensional displacement, it's not random. The cards suggest you're being prepared for something significant. A necessary role that only someone with your specific combination of qualities could fulfill. I've heard that before, Goku said wryly, thinking of previous, chosen one, situations he'd found himself in. Destiny has a way of finding me regardless of which dimension I'm in. Kana laughed softly. I don't think it's destiny, exactly. More like convergence of capability and opportunity. You have what's needed when it's needed. They sat in thoughtful silence for several minutes, watching the stars while contemplating possibilities. Finally, Kana gathered her cards, returning them to their pouch with reverent care. Whatever happens, she said quietly, you're not facing it alone. Fairy Tail stands with its own, no matter how recently they've joined us. The simple declaration of solidarity touched Goku deeply. Throughout his life, he'd been blessed with loyal friends who stood beside him against impossible odds. Finding that same spirit in this new world offered profound comfort. Thank you, he replied, the words inadequate for the emotion behind them. Kana seemed to understand nonetheless, her usual carefree demeanor returning as she stood and stretched. Enough serious talk for one night. I'm heading back to Fairy Hills before Urza starts her curfew patrol. You coming? Goku shook his head. Think I'll stay a bit longer. Clear my head before sleep. With a casual wave and knowing smile, Kana departed, leaving Goku alone with his thoughts beneath the alien stars. He remained there for nearly an hour, processing everything he'd learned about his situation, the continuing transformation, the apocalypse dragon's influence, the uncertain possibility of return. When he finally stood to return to his temporary quarters, his path took him past the cathedral just as its massive clock struck midnight. The sound echoed through the empty square, resonating with something within his developing magic, a sense of time passing, of cycles continuing, of endings containing the seeds of new beginnings. The apocalypse dragon's fundamental nature, he realized, wasn't destruction for its own sake, but transformation through necessary endings. Perhaps his presence in this world served a similar purpose, ending one chapter of his existence to begin another. With that thought offering strange comfort, Goku returned to Fairy Hills, his steps lighter despite the weight of uncertainty still resting on his shoulders. Unknown to him, a figure watched. From the cathedral's shadows, Ultir Milkovich, her expression contemplative as she observed the dimensional traveler whose arrival had accelerated plans years in the making. Right on schedule, she murmured to herself. A temporal orb floating above her palm. The apocalypse approaches, just as the prophecy foretold. In the orb's depths, images shifted, a black dragon in flight, a tear in reality's fabric. And a warrior with the power to end worlds or save them. The pieces were moving into position. The game had begun. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Scales of Memory. The mission request arrived at Fairy Tail 3 weeks after Goku's first training session with Urza. Makarov personally delivered it to Goku as he sat at the guild's bar, devouring his mid-morning meal while discussing magical theory with Levi. This, the guild master announced, placing a weathered parchment on the counter, might be exactly what you've been waiting for. Goku paused between bites, wiping his mouth before examining the document. The request appeared older than standard mission flyers, its edges worn and text faded in places. Unlike the printed notices that dominated the request board, this was H&WR. Written in elegant script that seemed to shimmer slightly in the guild hall's light. Ancient dragon relics discovered in the northern mountains, Goku read aloud, his interest immediately piqued. Express. Edition seeks magical consultant with draconic expertise. Keep reading, Makarov urged, his eyes twinkling with barely contained excitement. Quote. Artifacts believed connected to the Cataclysm era, and potentially the legendary Apocalypse Dragon. Goku looked up sharply. Is this legitimate? Levi leaned closer, her scholars' curiosity overwhelming protocol. The Cataclysm era predates most written history. Archaeological evidence suggests a period of massive destruction followed by accelerated rebirth of ecosystems approximately 4,000 years ago. The timing aligns with the dragon civil war mentioned in your visions. Makarov confirmed, and the expedition leader is credible, Darius Volsung, former Council Archaeological Division Director. He's spent decades searching for concrete evidence of the Apocalypse Dragon's existence. Goku studied the request more carefully, noting the substantial reward offered and the classification as an S-class mission. Why bring this to me specifically? Wouldn't Natsu or Wendy have more practical Dragon Slayer experience? Natsu and Wendy's dragon knowledge is specific to their foster dragons, Makarov explained. Your developing connection to the Apocalypse Dragon's memory fragments gives you unique insight that traditional Dragon Slayers lack. The Guild Master's reasoning made sense, but Goku detected something beyond practical consideration in the old man's eagerness. There's more to this mission than helping an archaeological expedition, isn't there? Makarov's expression shifted to one of grudging approval. You're becoming more perceptive about guild politics. Yes, there's another consideration. The council has been requesting more direct access to you for evaluation purposes since their representatives visited. Taking this officially sanctioned mission demonstrates your contribution to magical research while keeping you under Fairy Tail's authority. Political maneuvering, Goku observed with a slight smile. Not my favorite activity, but I understand the necessity. These weeks in Fairy Tail had taught him much about the complex political landscape of Fiore's magical community. The guild system, council oversight, dark guild threats, and international magical relations created a web of competent interests that reminded him of the Galactic Patrol's bureaucracy, well-intentioned but often inefficient and occasionally counterproductive. Who would accompany me? Goku asked, already mentally preparing for the mission. I've selected Urza and Mirajane, Makarov replied. Both S-class mages with experience handling unexpected developments, which archaeological expeditions invariably involve. Urza's requip abilities provide tactical flexibility, while Mirajane's Satan soul forms might resonate with draconic energies similar to your own magic. The mention of Mirajane brought an involuntary smile to Goku's face. Their connection had deepened significantly in recent weeks, evolving beyond her initial caretaker role into genuine friendship and perhaps something more. Their magical energies complemented each other in training sessions, creating synchronicities that enhanced both their abilities. Urza, meanwhile, had become his primary combat instructor, their regular sparring sessions pushing both warriors to new heights. Her disciplined approach balanced his more intuitive fighting style, resulting in rapid development of his Apocalypse Dragon Slayer techniques. When do we leave? Goku asked, his decision already made. Tomorrow at dawn, Makarov replied. The expedition camp is 3 days' journey north, in the mountains beyond Oak Town. Pack for varied terrain and extreme weather conditions. Dragon ruins are notorious for manifesting magical climate anomalies. With details settled, Goku finished his meal while Levi bombarded him with advice about archaeological magical protocols and preservation techniques. Her enthusiasm for knowledge was infectious, reminding him somewhat of Gohan's scholarly passion. After promising to take detailed notes for her research, Goku departed to prepare for the journey. His steps led him naturally toward Fairy Hills to inform Mirajane of their assignment. But he found her already aware and waiting in the dormitory's common area. Master told me about the mission, she explained, looking up from the supplies she was organizing. I've started gathering equipment for both of us, since you're still learning what's necessary for extended field operations. The thoughtfulness of her preparation touched Goku. Throughout his life, he'd typically embarked on journeys with minimal planning, relying on adaptability rather than preparation. Mirajane's meticulous attention to practical details complemented his improvisational approach. Thank you, he said sincerely, examining the efficient packing system she'd developed. This is much more organized than my usual grab-and-go method. Mirajane smiled, continuing to sort medical supplies into a specialized container. I've managed enough guild expeditions to develop efficient systems. Magical missions require preparation, especially when exploring ancient sites with unpredictable energies. They worked together companionably, Goku following Miragene's guidance on equipment selection and packing techniques. As they organized, they discussed the mission's potential implications for his developing magic. Direct contact with artifacts connected to the Apocalypse Dragon might accelerate your understanding, Mirajane observed as she demonstrated how to properly secure a bedroll. Physical connections to a dragon's history often trigger more coherent memory transfers for dragon slayers. That's what I'm hoping for, Goku agreed. The vision fragments are increasing in frequency but remain disconnected. I need a more complete understanding of this magic's purpose to fully control it. In the weeks since joining Fairy Tail, his Apocalypse Dragon Slayer abilities had developed substantially. Regular training with Urza and Mirajane had helped him adapt combat techniques to his new magical system, while meditation sessions guided by Makarov had improved his energy control. Yet he still felt disconnected from the magic's deeper nature, using techniques without fully understanding their fundamental purpose. You've made remarkable progress, Mirajane reminded him, her tone gentle but firm. Most artificial dragon slayers take years to achieve your level of integration. It's not enough, Goku replied, his characteristic determination evident. This magic is the key to potentially returning home. I need complete mastery, not partial understanding. Mirajane paused in her sorting, studying him with perceptive blue eyes. And if mastery reveals that return isn't possible, what then? The question struck at Goku's unspoken fear. Levy's research had increasingly suggested that his energy transformation might be permanent, his original key fundamentally altered by the Apocalypse Dragon magic. While he'd adapted well to life in Earthland, thoughts of his sons, his friends, and his unfulfilled responsibilities in his home dimension weighed on him. Then I'll make a life here, he answered finally, his honesty absolute. I've lost everything before and rebuilt. I can do it again if necessary. Something shifted in Miragene's expressee. A softening that conveyed both admiration and empathy. That's remarkably resilient. Not really, Goku shrugged. Just practical. Dwelling on what can't be changed wastes energy better spent on moving forward. His straightforward philosophy seemed to affect Mirajane deeply. For a moment, her composed demeanor wavered, revealing glimpses of emotion she typically kept carefully controlled. Most people would be crushed by your circumstances, she said quietly. Torn from everything familiar, powers altered, future uncertain, yet you face each day with genuine optimism. Goku considered this, head tilted slightly in thought. I've died twice, he stated matter-of-factly. Permanently separated from everyone I loved, both times. This situation is actually less final than those were. Miragene's eyes widened at this casual revelation. You've died and returned. My world has different rules about death, Goku explained, realizing he'd revealed more than intended. Under certain circumstances, revival is possible. It's complicated. Rather than the disbelief or fear most might show, Mirajane processed this information with remarkable composure. That explains some things about your perspective, she observed thoughtfully. Having experienced death would naturally change how you view displacement between dimensions. Her acceptance of his extraordinary claim without question demonstrated why Goku felt increasingly comfortable in her presence. Mirajane possessed an unusual capacity to absorb seemingly impossible information and integrate it into her understanding without judgment. They completed their preparations in companionable conversation, discussing everything from magical theory to guild gossip. By the time Urza arrived to coordinate final mission details, they had developed a comprehensive equipment plan for the expedition. Efficient preparation, Urza approved, examining their organized supplies. The archaeological team has requested we bring minimal personal equipment to maximize capacity for potential artifact transport. These packs comply perfectly with their parameters. The scarlet-haired Requip mage proceeded to outline the Journey's logistics, traveling by train to Oak Town, then hiking through increasingly mountainous terrain to reach the expedition base camp. From there, they would join the archaeological team for the final approach to the recently discovered ruins. The site was located using ancient star maps combined with ethernano density measurements, Urza explained, displaying a rough diagram provided by the expedition leader. Preliminary surveys suggest a complex larger than any previously documented dragon ruins. Has anyone entered the site yet? Goku asked, studying the diagram with interest. Only the expedition's advance scout, Who reported active magical defenses preventing further exploration? Urza replied. The team hopes your Dragon Slayer magic might allow passage where conventional magical approaches have failed. The mission briefing continued until sunset, after which they separated to rest before their pre-dawn departure. Goku retired to his room, but sleep proved elusive despite physical fatigue. His mind filled with anticipation about what the ruins might reveal regarding his developing magic and possible pathways home. When sleep finally claimed him, his dreams were filled with fragments of draconic memory, black scales gleaming under crimson skies, ancient stone structures aligned with celestial patterns, and a resonant voice speaking words he couldn't quite comprehend but somehow understood. Dawn found the three fairy tale mages boarding an early train bound for Oak Town. Goku had been warned by Natsu about the motion sickness that plagued Dragon Slayers, but found himself only mildly affected, perhaps because his magic was still developing, or possibly due to his extensive experience with high-speed movement in his home dimension. You're fortunate, Urza observed as they settled into their compartment. Natsu becomes completely incapacitated on transportation. Most Dragon Slayers suffer similarly, though intensity varies. It's uncomfortable, Goku admitted, focusing on his breathing to manage the unsettled sensation, but manageable. My body's experienced worse. The train journey provided opportunity for further mission discussion and strategy development. Urza had prepared extensively, researching known information about the Cataclysm era and compiling relevant historical accounts of dragon ruins exploration. Archaeological records indicate dragon structures often incorporate magical security systems targeted specifically at human mages, she explained, displaying diagrams from previous expeditions. However, Dragon Slayers sometimes receive different treatment due to their magical signatures. The ruins might recognize your magic as authorized, Mirajane suggested to Goku. Especially if they're connected specifically to the Apocalypse Dragon. Goku nodded thoughtfully. That could explain why the expedition requested Dragon Slayer consultation. Normal magical approaches might trigger defenses that Dragon Slayer magic bypasses. Their strategic planning continued throughout the journey, interspersed with more casual conversation that strengthened their team dynamic. By the time they disembarked at Oak Town Station that afternoon, they had developed preliminary approaches for various scenarios they might encounter. Oak Town itself proved fascinating to Goku, a medieval-style settlement built around a central castle. With architecture unlike anything in Magnolia, the town had once housed the Phantom Lord Guild before its dissolution, and remnants of that dark chapter remained in the cautious glances some residents directed toward fairy tale emblems. They spent the night at a modest inn, departing before dawn to begin the mountain trek. As civilization fell behind them, the landscape grew increasingly wild and magically active. Flora displayed properties impossible in Goku's home dimension: plants that glowed at twilight, trees that shifted position when unobserved, flowers whose colors changed based on nearby magical signatures. Ethernano concentration increases with elevation in this mountain range, Mirajane explained as they hiked along an increasingly narrow trail. It creates unique ecological adaptations in local species. The journey grew more challenging as they ascended, with paths frequently disappearing into rocky terrain that required climbing skills and occasional magical assistance. Urza efficiently cleared obstacles using her various armors and weapons, while Mirajane's partial takeover transformations provided enhanced strength when needed. Goku found himself thoroughly enjoying the physical challenge despite its purpose. The martial artist in him appreciated the varied terrain as a form of training, while the new Dragon Slayer aspects of his senses delighted in the wild, magic-rich environment. On the second day of hiking, they encountered their first significant obstacle, a ravine too wide to jump and too deep to descend safely. The narrow mountain path simply ended at the chasm's edge, continuing visibly on the opposite side nearly 40 feet away. The map doesn't indicate a crossing point, Urza noted with slight frustration, consulting their expedition materials. Goku studied the ravine thoughtfully, considering options. In his home dimension, he would have simply flown across or used instant transmission. His developing apocalypse magic offered different solutions. I might be able to create a temporary bridge, he suggested, approaching the edge. Apocalypse Dragon magic manipulates fundamental forces, including gravity and matter density. Concentrating carefully, he channeled magic into his hands, focusing on the space between the ravine edges. Apocalypse Dragon's reality anchor, he intoned, instinctively naming the technique as it formed in his mind. Dark energy spread from his palms, solidifying the air itself into a visible pathway of compressed magical particles. The bridge appeared semi-transparent but physically substantial, spanning the gap with a slight arch. Fascinating application, Urza observed, testing the structure with a cautious foot. You've essentially increased ether nanodensity to the point of physical manifestation. It's temporary, Goku cautioned as Mirajane joined Urza on the magical construct. The magic will dissipate naturally as we cross. I'll go last to maintain stability. They crossed efficiently, Goku maintaining concentration on the bridge until his companions reached safety. As he stepped onto solid ground on the far side, he released the technique, watching as the magic structure dissolved into shimmering particles that scattered on the mountain breeze. Your control continues to improve, Mirajane noted with approval. That was a complex manipulation requiring precise magical pressure. It felt natural, Goku admitted, slightly surprised by his own capability. As though I'd performed similar techniques before, though I know I haven't. Dragon memory influence, Urza suggested as they resumed their journey. Your magic is accessing knowledge embedded within its essence, similar to how archive magic accesses stored information. The concept align, with Goku's experiences, techniques and knowledge appearing in his consciousness without formal learning, as though remembered rather than acquired. This phenomenon had accelerated in recent days, particularly as they approached the region containing the dragon ruins. They reached the archaeological expedition's base camp late on the third day, arriving at a collection of tents and portable magi. Cal research equipment nestled in a protected valley. Team members moved purposefully between work areas, processing samples and consulting maps spread across collapsible tables. Their arrival drew immediate attention, with the expedition leader emerging from the central tent to greet them personally. Darius Volsung proved younger than Goku had expected, perhaps 40, with prematurely silver hair. And the lean build of someone who spent more time in field research than behind a desk. Fairy tale, welcome, he greeted, clasping forearms with Urza in a traditional researcher's greeting. Your timing is impeccable. We've completed preliminary site mapping but remain unable to access the central chambers. After introductions, Volsung led them to the command tent where a detailed 3-dimensional Sional magical projection displayed the discovered ruins. The structure was massive, a sprawling complex built directly into the mountainside, with distinctive draconic architectural elements and extensive symbolic carvings. We believe this was not merely a dragon dwelling but a purpose-built repository, Volsung explained, manipulating the projection to highlight specific features. The astronom, ICAL alignments and energy channeling systems suggest information preservation rather than habitation. Like the smaller site we stabilized, Mirajane observed, glancing at Goku. But significantly larger and more complex. Volsung's eyes sharpened WTH interest. You've encountered similar structures. A miniature version, Goku confirmed. A knowledge repository created during the Dragon Civil War to preserve collective memory. The archaeologist's excitement was palpable. Exactly what we hypothesized. This facility appears to be a primary repository rather than a satellite location. Magical signatures suggest multiple dragon contributions rather than a single source. He adjusted the projection again, revealing a sealed entrance inscribed with complex draconic script. This is our current obstacle. Conventional magical approaches trigger increasingly hostile defensive responses. We lost 2 weeks of research when an attempted bypass caused a localized temporal distortion that accelerated entropy within a 50-foot radius. In simpler terms, Goku asked, somewhat lost in the technical explanation. Everything aged rapidly, Mirajane clarified. Equipment rusted, organic materials decomposed. Magical constructs dissipated. Precisely, Volsung confirmed. Classic apocalypse aspect magic, acceleration of natural decay processes. Which is why your specific expertise is invaluable, Mr. Goku. The archaeologist's knowledge of Goku's magical development surprised him, though perhaps it shouldn't have. The Magic Council clearly monitored his situation closely enough to brief approved researchers. I'll examine the entrance tomorrow, Goku decided after studying the projection further. After proper rest and magical preparation, Volsung seemed eager to Seed immediately but acquiesced to the reasonable timeline. Of course, we've prepared accommodations for your team. The site has remained stable for millennia, another night won't matter. After settling into their assigned tent and sharing a meal with the research team, Goku, Mirajane, and Urza gathered privately to discuss their approach for the following day. The defensive responses concern me, Urza admitted, her tactical mind evaluating potential risks. Temporal distortion is high-tier magic normally requiring specialized equipment or rare innate abilities. It's consistent with Apocalypse Dragon attributes. Mirajane noted, control over fundamental processes including time flow, matter degradation, and reality stabilization. Goku nodded, recalling memory fragments that aligned with her assessment. The Apocalypse aspect encompasses ending cycles naturally, including temporal acceleration to reach necessary conclusions. Which makes you our primary asset for tomorrow's attempt, Urza concluded. The ruins may recognize your magical signature as authorized, or at minimum, you should be able to counter similar magical effects if defensive systems activate. Their plan, Ning continued until exhaustion demanded rest. Despite the comfortable accommodations, Goku again found sleep elusive, his consciousness increasingly attuned to a magical presence emanating from the nearby mountain. The ruins were active in ways the researchers likely couldn't detect, a slow draconic awakening triggered by proximity to compatible magic. When sleep finally claimed him, his dreams were more coherent than previous dragon memory fragments. He witnessed a council of 7 dragons, each representing a fundamental aspect of existence, gathered within the very complex they would explore tomorrow. The Apocalypse Dragon, midnight scales occasionally revealing starfield patterns beneath, argued passionately against the others. Preservation without purpose creates stagnation, it insisted, voice resonating with absolute conviction. Knowledge must cycle through discovery, application, loss, and rediscovery to maintain relevance. The dream shifted, showing the same dragons critiquing the repository despite the Apocalypse Dragon's objections, embedding multiple layers of security to ensure only worthy successors could access their accumulated wisdom. The final image before Goku awakened was the Apocalypse Dragon reluctantly contributing its own knowledge, but with a significant difference from the others. When the vessel comes, my essence will recognize its own, it declared, creating a unique magical signature within its contribution. The worthy will access not mere information, but understanding. Goku woke with that declaration echoing in his mind, dawn light filtering through the tent fabric. The dream felt more like memory than imagination, a direct communication from the dragon essence now intertwined with his developing magic. He emerged from the tent to find Mirajane already awake, sitting cross-legged on a nearby boulder with eyes closed in meditative preparation. The morning light illuminated her silver-white hair like a halo, her serene expression reflecting deep inner focus. Not wishing to disturb her, Goku moved a short distance away and began his own preparation routine, a combination of physical stretches derived from his lifelong martial arts training and magical centering techniques Makarov had taught him. The familiar movements helped organize his thoughts regarding the dream memory and its potential significance for today's exploration. Urza joined them shortly, her efficient morning preparations completed with military precision. Together, they broke their fast with the expedition team before departing for the ruins, accompanied by Volsung and 2 research assistants carrying specialized magical monitoring equipment. The approach took nearly 2 hours, following a winding path up the mountainside to where massive stone doors marked the repository entrance. Up close, the structure proved even more impressive than the projection had suggested. Dragons had shaped the entire mountainside into an architectural extension of the natural formation, creating seamless transitions between mountain and constructed elements. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, Urza observed, examining the precisely fitted stone blocks that formed the entrance facade. No mortar, yet the seams remain watertight after millennia. Dragon magic infused the very stone, Volsung explained, gesturing toward barely visible runes carved along the seams. The material itself was transmuted at a fundamental level, creating a self-maintaining structure. Goku approached the sealed doors while the others discussed architectural details. The massive stone panels stood nearly 30 feet high, covered in intricate draconic script that seemed to shift slightly when viewed from different angles. At the center, 7 distinct magical signatures radiated from carefully carved symbols, representations of the 7 dragon aspects he'd seen in his dream. As he studied the elaborate security system, Goku's apocalypse magic responded instinctively. Dark energy flowing through his meridians without conscious direction. The sensation wasn't threatening but purposeful, as though the magic recognized its origin and sought reconnection. "There's something different about your magical aura," Mirajane noted, moving to stand beside him. Her sensitivity to magical energy changes had grown increasingly attuned to his specific signature during their weeks of training together. "The magic recognizes this place," Goku confirmed, allowing the energy to flow naturally rather than attempting to control it. "It's responding to the security system without my direction." Volsung approached cautiously, magical measuring instruments extended. "Fascinating. Your magical signature is resonating specifically with the temporal aspectual components of the sealing matrix. This confirms our hypothesis about apocalypse element contributions to the repository's design." "Can you open it?" Urza asked practically, her focus remaining on their mission objective. Goku studied the door configuration more carefully, allowing instinctive understanding to guide his assessment. "Not by force or conventional magical approaches. It requires acknowledgement, recognition between compatible energies." Following intuition rather than conscious reasoning, he placed his palm against the central symbol representing the apocalypse aspect. Dark energy flowed from his hand into the arved runes, which illuminated with midnight blue light that spread outward along previously invisible channels throughout the facade. The massive doors remained sealed, however, prompting Volsung to consult his instruments with furrowed brow. "The ruins acknowledge your magical signature but require additional authentication. Something beyond mere magical compatibility." Goku closed his eyes, reaching deeper into the developing connection between himself and the Apocalypse Dragon essence. The memory dream from the previous night provided insight. This wasn't merely a magical lock but a test of worthiness and understanding. "The worthy will access not mere information, but understanding," he murmured, recalling the dragon's declaration. Understanding what? The question formed in his mind, and somehow, he knew the answer. The apocalypse aspect wasn't simply about destruction but about necessary endings that enabled new beginnings. About cycles rather than finality. About renewal through transformation. With this comprehension crystallizing, Goku channeled his magic differently, not pushing energy into the door but establishing a resonant connection that conveyed concept rather than mere power. The apocalypse magic responded eagerly, forming patterns that matched the door's complex security matrix but with subtle variations that represented his unique interpretation of the fundamental principles. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The door's illuminated patterns reconfigured, ancient magic recognizing both draconic origin and individual understanding. With a deep rumbling that vibrated through the mountain itself, the massive stone panels began sliding apart, revealing a darkened passage beyond. "Extraordinary," Volsung breathed, his instruments recording frantically. "You didn't bypass the security system, you satisfied it legitimately. The repository is recognizing you as an authorized user rather than a mere visitor." The implications weren't lost on Goku. This wasn't simply about accessing ancient knowledge. The ruins were responding to him as though he possessed legitimate claim to the Apocalypse Dragon's legacy. The connection ran deeper than mere magical absorption. It suggested a prepared role he had accidentally stepped into. As the doors completed their opening sequence, cool air redolent with ancient magic flowed from the darkened interior. Magical lights activated automatically along the passage walls, illuminating a corridor that extended deep into the mountain, its surfaces covered with intricate draconic records. "Shall we?" Urza suggested, re-equipping into exploration armor equipped with enhanced sensory capabilities and defensive enchantments. Mirajane nodded, her expression reflecting both excitement and caution. Goku should lead, since the security systems recognize his magical signature. With Goku at point, their small group entered the repository, the research assistants documenting everything with specialized lacrima recorders. The entrance passage widened into a massive circular chamber with 7 corridors branching outward like spokes from a wheel. Each passage entrance featured NCTIVE magical signatures corresponding to different draconic aspects. A central hub connecting specialized knowledge sections, Volsung hypothesized, consulting reference materials. Each passage likely contains information specific to one dragon aspect. Goku's attention drew naturally to the passage marked with the Apocalypse aspect symbol, a corridor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an impression of infinite depth. Before he could suggest exploring that direction, however, the entire complex shuddered violently. Something's wrong, Mirajane warned, her magic. Al senses alert to sudden disturbances in the ambient energy. That wasn't structural instability, it was reactive. Agreed, Urza confirmed, weapons materializing in preparation for potential threats. The repository is responding to something beyond our actions. A second tremor, stronger than the first, shook loose ancient dust from the chamber ceiling. Volsung's instruments began registering erratic energy patterns throughout the complex. Multiple magical signatures activating simultaneously, he reported with professional calm belying the concern in his eyes. Defense systems engaging, but not targeted at us specifically. Then what? Goku began, before a massive explosion from the entrance interrupted his question. Through the dust and debris emerged a figure moving with our natural speed. A young woman with long black hair streaked with crimson, wearing armor that incorporated dragon scales into its design. Her eyes burned with magical energy as she surveyed the chamber, her gaze finally locking onto Goku with unmistakable hostility. "Thief," she snarled, her voice carrying draconic harmonics that identified her instantly as a dragon slayer. "You dare claim what isn't yours?" Without waiting for response, she attacked, moving faster than the researchers could follow but well within Goku's perception. Her fighting style combined martial prowess with dragon slayer magic that manifested as crimson-black energy, strikingly similar to Goku's own Apocalypse magic, though less refined. "Apocalypse Dragon's crushing fist," she shouted, her attack mirroring techniques Goku had developed recently. He countered instinctively, blocking her strike with a magically reinforced forearm. The collision of compatible magical energies created a shockwave that rippled through the chamber, causing the researchers to stagger while Urza and Mirajane maintained their footing through magical reinforcement. "Wait," Goku called, maintaining a defensive posture rather than counter-attacking. "I don't know what you think I've stolen, but..." "The Apocalypse Dragon's power," she interrupted, launching another attack sequence that demonstrated extensive combat training. "My beer. Thrite, the magic I've spent my entire life preparing to receive. Then you appear from nowhere, absorbing what was meant for me." Her accusation confused Goku momentarily before understanding dawned. This woman had somehow been preparing specifically for Apocalypse Dragon Slayer magic, perhaps raised or trained for that purpose, only to have Goku's dimensional arrival and subsequent magical absorption disrupt those plans. "I didn't choose this magic," he explained, continuing to defend without attacking. "It happened during dimensional transition. I'm still learning too." "Lies," she shouted, genuine pain underlying her anger. "The Apocalypse Dragon's essence awakens only for its chosen vessel. You manipulated the process somehow, intercepted what was destined for another." Her attacks intensified, forcing Goku to engage more actively. Their combat styles proved fascinating counterpoints, her technique formal and specifically developed for Dragon Slayer application, while his adapted martial arts from another dimension to this new magical system. Urza moved to intervene, but Mirajane held her back with a restraining hand. "Wait," she counseled quietly. "This is specifically about Dragon Slayer succession. Our interference might escalate rather than resolve." The mysterious Dragon Slayer pressed her attack, driving Goku backward toward one of the chamber's branch corridors. "Apocalypse Dragon's roar," she called, unleashing a breath attack of concentrated destructive magic. Goku countered with his own roar, the compatible energies colliding midair in a spectacular confluence that briefly stabilized before detonating outward. The explosion activated dormant defense systems throughout the chamber, magical barriers forming around the archaeological team for protection. The floor beneath the combatants reconfigured into a contained arena. "The repository is adapting to contain their battle," Volsung observed with academic fascination despite the danger. "It's eating this as a legitimate succession challenge rather than an external threat." Separated from their companions by the repository's reconfiguration, Goku and his attacker continued their increasingly elaborate combat. Each exchange revealed more about their respective capabilities, her techniques polished through years of specific training, his raw power tempered by lifetime combat experience across multiple fighting styles. "Who are you?" Goku demanded during a momentary separation. How do you have Apocalypse Dragon Slayer magic? Ryuko Kazama, she answered, circling warily. Last apprentice of the Apocalypse Dragon lineage. Trained from childhood to receive the dormant essence when it awakened. Her eyes narrowed accusingly. Which should have been mine until you interfered. The name triggered recognition. Not personal memory but draconic knowledge awakening within Goku's developing magical consciousness. The Apocalypse Dragon had indeed established a lineage of potential successors. Humans trained across generations to potentially receive its power if deemed worthy. I didn't know, Goku stated honestly. My arrival here was accidental, dimensional displacement during battle. The magic sought me out for survival, not by my design. Something in his sincere explanation gave Ryuko pause, though her combat stance remained ready. Dimensional displacement. You claim to be from another world entirely. Another dimension, Goku confirmed. Where I used different energy entirely, ki rather than magic. The Apocalypse Dragon essence merged with my ki during transition, see. Reading this hybrid power I'm still learning to control. Ryuko's expression reflected skepticism, but the repository itself provided unexpected confirmation. The arena floor illuminated with complex, magical diagrams showing dimensional layers and transition patterns, the ancient knowledge system apparently responding to their conversation with relevant information. The repository confirms interdimensional theory, she acknowledged reluctantly, studying the diagrams with evident magical knowledge. But this doesn't explain why the essence chose an untrained vessel over a prepared successor. Before Goku could respond, the chamber shuddered again, not from their combat but from external magical pressure building against the mountain itself. The repository's defenses activated more fully, sealing passages and reinforcing structural integrity. Something's attacking the repository, Goku realized, his magical senses detecting malevolent intent beyond their controlled combat. Something powerful. Ryuko's hostility temporarily redirected from Goku to this new threat. Dark Guild activity has increased in these mountains recently. They seek dragon artifacts for power amplification. Their momentary alliance formed through shared priority, protecting the repository took precedence over personal conflict. The chamber's magical barriers reconfigured, reuniting them with the XPD Tion team while maintaining overall defenses. The repository is under external attack, Urza announced as they rejoined the group, having reached the same conclusion independently. Multiple magical signatures attempting to breach secondary entrances. The security systems are responding, Volsung confirmed, monitoring magical patterns through his instruments. But these attackers appear IAR with draconic defenses. They're using counter-harmonic disruption to systematically weaken protective enchantments. We need to separate, Mirajane suggested, activating partial Satan soul transformation in preparation. Defend multiple access points simultaneously. Ryuko's expression revealed reluctant agreement. The repository prioritizes knowledge preservation above all. If primary defenses fail, it will initiate purge protocols, destroying information to prevent unauthorized access. Unacceptable loss, Volsung stated firmly. These records are irreplaceable cultural heritage. Goku assessed their situation quickly. Warrior instincts providing tactical clarity. Ryuko and I should secure the central hub. Our compatible magic will strengthen the primary defenses. Urza, can you handle the main entrance we came through? Quote. The Requip mage nodded sharply. Already prepared. My adamantine armor can reinforce structural weak points while providing magical countermeasures. Mirajane and I will take the research team to the secure analysis chamber we identified earlier, Volsung suggested. Its secondary defenses should protect non-combatants while allowing continued documentation. With roles assigned, they separated efficiently. Urza heading toward the main entrance, Volsung leading his team and Mirajane toward a protected research alcove, while Goku and Ryuko remained in the central hub to coordinate overall defense. Once relatively alone, Ryuko's conflicted gaze returned to Goku. This temporary alliance doesn't resolve our dispute. The Apocalypse Dragon Essence CA not have two vessels. The magic is too unstable, too powerful for division. One problem at a time, Goku replied practically. Let's ensure there's a repository left to argue about afterward. Despite her evident frustration, Ryuko nodded agreement. They positioned themselves at the chamber's center, where floor markings indicated a magical amplification node designed specifically for draconic energy manipulation. "We need to synchronize our magical output," Ryuko instructed, her lifetime of specialized training evident. "The defense system can use compatible energy to reinforce all barriers simultaneously." Though inexperienced with apocalypse magic specifically, Goku's lifetime of energy manipulation provided transferable skills. Following Ryuko's lead, he channeled his magic into the floor node, carefully matching her output frequency and modulation. Their combined energy flowed through ancient channels throughout the complex, reinforcing weakening barriers and counteracting the attacker's disruptive magic. The sensation proved strangely intimate, their compatible magical signatures interacting in ways that revealed aspects of each other's nature beyond conscious sharing. Goku glimpsed fragments of Ryuko's life through the connection: childhood training under stern masters, years of disciplined preparation, meditation beneath ancient dragon monuments, and finally, the devastating realization that the power she'd prepared lifelong to receive had been claimed by an interdimensional interloper. In turn, Ryuko experienced flashes of Goku's existence, battles to protect his home dimension, relationships with family and friends now potentially lost forever, the disorienting transition to Earthland, and his genuine confusion about the Apocalypse Dragon's selection. His unintentional exchange created reluctant understanding between them, though Ryuko's resentment remained evident. Their magical synchronization strengthened despite personal conflict, the Repositor wise defenses stabilizing under their combined effort. Through their enhanced connection to the repository's systems, they detected Urza engaging multiple attackers at the main entrance, her combat cap ability handling the threat efficiently but revealing the attacker's significant magical resources and coordination. Organized Dark Guild operation, Ryuko assessed from the magical signatures. Eli Eisenwald remnants combined with artifact traffickers. They're specifically targeting Apocalypse aspect records, the same information I've sought for years. Why that specifically? Goku asked, maintaining their synchronized energy flow while analyzing tactical developments. Apocalypse magic documentation is exceptionally rare, she explained, professional knowledge temporarily overriding personal animosity. Most records were deliberately destroyed during the Dragon Civil War when Apocalypse techniques were deemed too dangerous for preservation. This aligned with memory fragments You had experienced. The Apocalypse Dragon's objections to knowledge preservation had been partially validated by other dragons, resulting in selective redaction of its most powerful techniques. Their conversation halted as a massive magical surge struck the repository's western boundary, a concentrated attack that briefly overwhelmed Loke's defenses before their reinforcement stabilized the breach. Through their connection to the security system, they sensed unfamiliar mages entering the complex through the temporary opening. "We need to intercept," Ryuko stated, already disengaging from the synchronization node. "The western corridor contains temporal manipulation records, catastrophic in the wrong hands." Goku hesitated, torn between maintaining central defenses and addressing the immediate incursion. "If we both leave, the synchronized reinforcement collapses." "I'll go," Mirajane's voice called from a communication lacrima Volsung had provided earlier. "The research team is secure. Ryuko, maintain central coordination with Goku, your combined magic is stabilizing the entire complex." The practical solution satisfied immediate tactical needs, though Ryuko's expression revealed continued discomfort with prolonged magical synchronization with Goku. Nevertheless, professional training overrode personal preference as she maintained their connection while Mirajane intercepted the Western intruders. Through their enhanced awareness of the repository's layout, they tracked Mirajane's progress toward the breach point. Her Satan soul transformation provided magical compatibility with the complex's demonic aspect defensive subsystems, allowing her to activate additional security measures unavailable to conventional mages. "She's impressive," Ryuko acknowledged grudgingly, monitoring Mirajane's efficient combat through their security connection. "Few mages can manipulate demonic essence with such precise control." "Mirajane understands transformation magic at a fundamental level," Goku agreed, pride evident in his tone. "She sees beyond form to purpose, like how Apocalypse magic isn't simply destruction but necessary transition." This perspective caught Ryuko's attention. "You understand the conceptual foundation," she observed, genuine surprise replacing hostility momentarily. Most assume apocalypse magic focuses solely on ending, missing its role in renewal cycles. The dragon memories show more, Goku explained. It opposed knowledge preservation not from destructive intent but because rediscovery creates innovation while mere inheritance leads to stagnation. Their philosophical discussion continued despite the ongoing crisis, creating unexpected common ground that gradually shifted their magical synchronization from reluctant cooperation to more harmonious interaction. The repository's defenses strengthened accordingly, responding to their improved alignment with increasingly effective countermeasures against the external attackers. Through their connection, they sensed the battle turning in their favor, Urza successfully repelling the main entrance attackers while Mirajane contained and defeated the Western infiltration team. The remaining attackers began retreating, apparently recognizing their operation had failed. As immediate danger receded, however, the repository's security systems detected a final desperate attempt, a massive lacrima bomb deployed at the main entrance, designed to collapse the entire complex if the attackers couldn't claim its knowledge. Scorched earth approach, Ryuko snarled, disgust evident. Typica, artifact traffickers, if they can't profit, no one benefits. The explosive device exceeded conventional magical construction, incorporating dragonfire residue that could potentially overcome even draconic defensive measures. Its magical signature indicated imminent detonation, too soon for physical disarming. We need to contain it, Goku decided instantly. Direct apocalypse magic can create a temporal bubble to isolate the explosion. Ryuko nodded agreement, professional assessment overriding lingering resentment. Dual caster approach would provide necessary stability. We'll need to NNEL directly through the repository's network rather than attempting remote casting. Without further discussion, they deepened their synchronization, pushing their compatible magic through the repo. Satori's ancient channels toward the entrance where Urza was attempting conventional containment measures against the device. Urza, clear the area, Goku communicated through their connection. We're implementing temporal isolation. The Requip mage acknowledged immediately, recognizing the superior approach and withdrawing to a safe distance. As the lacrima bomb reached critical instability, Goku and Ryuko executed their coordinated technique. Apocalypse Dragon's eternal moment, they called simultaneously, their combined magic creating a specialized field that isolated the explosive ice in a bubble of suspended time, effectively removing it from normal temporal progression without destroying it. The containment succeeded milliseconds before detonation, trapping the explosive energy in a state of perpetual almost happening. The shimmering temporal bubble would maintain itself indefinitely, drawing minimal power from the repository's ambient magical field. Elegant solution, Volsung commented through the communication lacrima. The research potential of a suspended high-energy magical reaction is tremendous. With the immediate threat neutralized, the repository's defense returned to normal operational status. Goku and Ryuko disengaged from their synchronized connection, both experiencing momentary disorientation as their magically enhanced awareness contracted to normal parameters. That was, Ryuko began, struggling to articulate the experience. Intense, Goku finished, understanding exactly what she meant. The magical synchronization had created connecti on beyond mere cooperation, a temporary blending of perspectives that couldn't be easily dismissed. They rejoined the others at the main chamber, where Urza and Mirajane were securing captured attackers for council custody. Volsung's team had already resumed documentation, apparently considering the attack merely an exciting research interruption rather than a genuine threat to their lives. 6 Dark Guild members captured, Urza reported professionally, primarily artifact traffickers with some former Eisenwald associates. Their leader escaped, unfortunately. They were well informed about this location, Mirajane added, her Satan's soul form gradually receding as immediate danger passed. Someone provided detailed intelligence about the repository's defenses and contents. Ryuko's expression darkened. I have suspicions about potential information sources. Certain knowledge brokers specialize in draconic archaeological intelligence. The operational debrief continued briefly before Volsung suggested returning to base camp for proper rest and recovery. The repository's defenses had stabilized completely, and the research team could resume thorough documentation the following day with enhanced security measures. As they prepared to depart, Ryuko approached Goku privately, her manner still guarded but lacking previous outright hostility. Our conflict remains unresolved, she stated directly. The Apocalypse Dragon essence traditionally selects a single vessel. This situation is unprecedented. Most of my life involves unprecedented situations, Goku replied with a slight smile. Maybe there's purpose in this unexpected arrangement. Ryuko's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Perhaps. The synchronization revealed aspects of your character that, she hesitated, semen. Gly, reluctant to offer even minimal acknowledgement, suggest you weren't randomly selected by the essence. Will you return to the camp with us? Goku asked, sensing her intention to depart separately. No, I have other investigations to pursue regarding today's attack, she answered. But we will meet again. The Apocalypse Dragon's legacy cannot remain divided indefinitely. With that cryptic statement, she departed, moving with Dragon Slayer speed that carried her quickly beyond normal visual range. Her abrupt exit left Goku with conflicted feelings. Their brief magical synchronization had created connection that made her departure feel somehow incomplete. An interesting development, Mirajane observed, joining Goku as he watched Ryuko disappear into the mountain landscape. I've never encountered a secondary Apocalypse Dragon Slayer candidate before. She trained her entire life for a role I accidentally stepped into, Goku summarized, feeling genuine sympathy despite her hostility. Her resentment is understandable. Mirajane studied him thoughtfully. Yet you don't resent her claim to your magic. It's not really mine to begin with, Goku replied with characteristic straightforwardness. I'm borrowing power that existed long before me. If there's a way to transfer it to someone properly prepared, that might actually be best for everyone. This perspective meant to both impress and concern Mirajane. You would surrender power you've worked to master. Power that might be your path home. Goku considered this carefully, not immediately or carelessly. But, if research confirms this magic rightfully belongs to someone else's legacy, holding it through mere circumstance seems wrong. The ethical clarity of his position visibly affected Mirajane, her expression softening with something beyond mere appreciation. Before she could respond, however, Urza called for their departure, the expedition team having completed temporary securing of the repository entrance. Their journey back to base camp proceeded without incident, though magical exhaustion from the day's events made the trek more challenging than their arrival had been. By the time they reached camp, evening shadows had lengthened across the valley, and expedition members had prepared a substantial meal in anticipation of their return. After eating and providing detailed reports for expedition records and eventual council documentation, Goku sought solitude at the camp's perimeter. The day's events, accessing the repository, confronting Ryuko, defending against Dark Guild attack, and experiencing deep magical synchronization, had provided substantial information requiring careful processing. He found a suitable meditation spot on an outcropping overlooking the valley, with clear view of stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Cross-legged on the stone surface, he closed his eyes and focused on the apocalypse magic flowing through his system, examining how the wise activities had affected its development. The repository access had stabilized certain aspects of his magical integration, providing contextual framework for techniques that had previously manifested instinctively without deeper understanding. Synchronization with Ryuko had demonstrated possibilities for coordinated application that exceeded individual capability. Most significantly, direct connection to draconic records had clarified the apocalypse magic's fundamental nature, not merely destructive but transformative, focused on necessary endings that enabled new beginnings. Mind if I join you? Mirajane's voice drew him from meditation. She stood nearby, silhouetted against the darkening sky, her white hair capturing the last lingering sunlight. Without waiting for response, she settled beside him on the outcropping, her presence complementing rather than interrupting his contemplative state. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching stars emerge in increasing numbers as night claimed the mountain valley. Finally, Mirajane spoke, her voice gentle yet direct. You're processing a lot, she observed. Repository knowledge, combat application, and unexpected competition for magic you're still mastering. Goku nodded, appreciating her perceptiveness. The repository confirms something I've suspected since the magic first manifested. It has specific purpose beyond raw power. The apocalypse aspect exists to facilitate necessary transitions between states of being. Endings that enable beginnings, Mirajane summarized. Similar to how my Satan soul, transformations require surrendering normal state to access demonic capabilities. Exactly, Goku confirmed, pleased by her understanding. The Apocalypse Dragon wasn't simply destructive, it maintained balance by ensuring cycles completed properly rather than extending artificially. Mirajane considered this thoughtfully. And Ryuko, where does she fit in this developing understanding? She represents formal legacy, trained specifically for this magic through established lineage. My claim comes through circumstantial compatibility rather than prepared succession. Yet the magic chose you despite her preparation. Mirajane pointed out. That suggests legitimacy beyond mere circumstance. Her perspective aligned with questions Goku had been considering during meditation. The Apocalypse Dragon essence had specifically identified him as a worthy vessel, despite Ryuko's lifelong preparation. The synchronization had revealed her extensive training but also rigid adherence to formal doctrine that sometimes missed conceptual flexibility. Maybe we both have legitimate but different claims, Goku suggested. Her through dedicated preparation, mine through compatible perspective. Mirajane shifted slightly, drawing his attention to her expression, thoughtful but with underlying concern. You've integrated remarkably well with fairy tale, she noted, seemingly changing subjects. In just weeks, you've formed connections that some members take years to develop. The observation surprised Goku slightly. Everyone's been welcoming. It's a good guild. Reminds me of friendships back home. That's exactly it, Mirajane continued. You speak of home with longing but function here with natural belonging. It creates an interesting contradiction, the dimensional traveler who fits perfectly in his unexpected destination. Her insight struck deeper than Goku had anticipated. She had identified a growing internal conflict he'd barely acknowledged himself, increasing attachment to Earthland and fairy tale despite continued determination to find a path home. I adapt quickly, he offered simply. Always have. It's more than adaptation, Mirajane pressed gently. You're developing bonds here, with the guild, with individuals. A slight hesitation. With me. The directness of her statement created momentary silence between them. Goku had never been particularly adept at navigating emotional complexity. Chi-Chi had often lamented his straightforward approach to relationships, but even he recognized the significance of Mirajane's observation. Yes, he acknowledged finally. I am. The simple confirmation seemed to affect Mirajane deeply. Her gaze remained fixed on the distant mountains, but her hand moved slightly closer to his on the stone surface between them. If you found a way home tomorrow, she asked carefully, would you take it without hesitation? The question crystallized his developing internal conflict perfectly. Weeks ago, the answer would have been immediate and absolute. Now, complexity had entered the equation. New relationships, developing magic, potential purpose beyond mere displacement. I have responsibilities there, he began slowly. Family, friends, battles left unfinished. But, he paused, organizing thoughts he'd avoided examining directly. I'm finding purpose here too. Connections that matter. His gaze met hers directly. I don't have a simple answer anymore. Mirajane's expression softened, understanding rather than disappointment reflected in her eyes. That's actually reassuring. Simple answers rarely acknowledge complex truths. The moment between them deepened, connection forming beyond words as the mountain night enveloped them in peaceful darkness punctuated by stars. Mirajane's hand finally completed its journey across the stone, her fingers lightly touching his in contact that conveyed more than casual comfort. Neither spoke for some time, the physical connection saying more than words could express. Eventually, practical concerns intruded. Camp curfew approaching, rest needed before tomorrow's continued repository exploration, reports requiring completion for council documentation. As they rose to return to camp, Mirajane's hand remained briefly in Goku's, tear fingers intertwined in acknowledgement of something developing between them, unplanned but increasingly significant. The gesture carried no demands or expectations, merely recognition of genuine connection forming despite unlikely circumstances. Back at camp, they separated to their assigned quarters, but the connection established on the mountainside remained, another step in Goku's ongoing integration into this new world that had begun as accidental destination but increasingly felt like place of purpose. In his tent, preparing for sleep, Goku reflected on the day's revelations, both external discoveries about the apocalypse magic's nature and internal realizations about his developing attachments to Earthland. Ryako's appearance had complicated his understanding of the magic's selection process, while Mirajane's observations had clarified his evolving relationship to this new world. As sleep approached, the apocalypse dragon's memory voice returned, clearer than previous manifestations. The worthy vessel stands between worlds, understanding both necessity of endings and possibility of new beginnings. This perspective, not mere power or prepared position, forms true worthiness. The message provided no simple answers but offered framework for understanding his unexpected selection. With this contemplative reassurance, Goku finally surrendered to exhaustion, dreaming of black scales that reflected starlight and new paths forming where none had existed before. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.